Good evening. Welcome to Columbia Heights Public Schools Independent School District 13 School Board meeting for Tuesday, June 13th, 2017. I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask you to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you and welcome again. And Natty, if you would please read the roll.
Larkin?
Here.
Palmer? Here. Mueller? Here. Samurai? Severson? Here. Lewis? Here. Superintendent Kelly? Here.
Thank you. Our mission statement. Columbia Heights Public Schools create worlds of opportunity for every learner in partnership with supportive small-town communities by challenging all to discover their talents, unleash their potential, and develop tools for lifelong success. Our core values are community, excellence, collaboration, integrity, respect, courage, and innovation. Next up would be the agenda approval and adjustments and announcements and correspondence. We'll start with approval of the agenda. If I get a motion to move that forward, please.
So moved.
Lorian?
Second.
Natty? Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Announcements, June 20th at 5 p.m. There'll be a school board listening session. Also on June 20th at 5:30, there'll be a school board work session. June 27th at 5 p.m., there'll be a subcommittee on policy. June 27th at 7 p.m., regular school board meeting. July 3rd through the 7th, the high school, the district center, and the family center will be closed. July 4th, which is a Tuesday, district offices are closed for the 4th of July holiday. Next up is correspondence. Superintendent Kelly, any correspondence?
Mr. Chair and members, there's no correspondence this evening.
Thank you. Communication to the board, citizen and employee representatives. At this time, any citizen or employee may briefly address the school board. The board will listen to the brief remarks, ask clarifying questions, and if desired, request that administration follow up. The board will not take action at this meeting on requests presented at this time. Any cards? Okay. We will move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda tonight includes minutes of the May 9th and 23rd school board meetings and the May 16th work session, the personnel report, and the treasurer's report for April 2017. I get a motion to move that forward, please.
So moved.
Molly?
Second.
Laura, thank you. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Next up, discussion reports and information items. Reports from members of the board. Board members will report on board activities since the last regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Education. I'll go first tonight. I'm going to defer my report just based on the length of the agenda for any of the personal items, but I do want to just take a second to congratulate our 2017 graduates. Once again, emphasize what a thrill and an honor it is to be able to be there when they receive their diplomas. And congratulations to staff and administration on what I believe to be a banner year. So thank you to all. And that concludes my report. Lauren?
Me? Didn't know if you said Lorian or Laura.
Lorian, sorry.
And also in keeping reports brief today, I just also wanted to congratulate the graduates, and that was my first experience attending graduation, and it was a really fabulous experience. I am already looking forward to next year. Also wanted to mention, as a parent, I had the opportunity to attend the information session at the high school on the concurrent enrollment for classes at Anoka Ramsey Community College. And as a board member, I felt like that information and that level of detail for those classes on concurrent enrollment were excellent. So if anybody has questions about those later, I would be happy to talk about that experience. But I was really interested in how that program is going to continue to grow. That's it for me.
Yeah. Laura?
The graduation every year, it is so incredibly amazing, and the staff and these kids so confident coming across the stage. It's always such a buoyant experience. You know, you really walk out of there with your head held high, and there's no real words to express just how incredibly grateful I am to be able to participate in that process and how proud I am of all the hard work that these kids do. I'm going to keep this short. I also attended a 916 board meeting. That is the that is our collaboration for special education and some other districts. We all collaborate on some projects. One thing that they're working on is the model classrooms, and I would like to have a discussion maybe in the future about some of the things that they're doing with technology. And then I will defer the rest of my report.
Thanks. Molly?
I'll do pretty much the same thing, defer most of my report because it was a very busy couple of weeks at all of the different schools. Congratulations, like everyone else said, though, to the class of 2017. It was a phenomenal ceremony. I heard from many parents, too, that they were very pleased with the ceremony. They thought it was really well done. And a huge thank you to the teachers and staff in this district for a great school year. That's it for today. Thank you.
Addie?
I'm gonna jump right on that and say thanks to all the teachers and staff who worked so hard this year to get all the kids, not just the graduates, through another year successfully. And just a special congratulations to all the graduates. It really was just as fun sitting up on that stage and being able to take that in at such close range, and just the joy as the kids came across the stage, and I got to see them after they had their diploma, so that was great.
Cool. And we've had a conversation in the chair meeting, and I've been assured that the superintendent do her best to not use 2/3 of the alphabet at our next meeting for agenda items. So if you want to bring some of those things that you did over the last couple of weeks, that would be probably appropriate then. So superintendent's report, Superintendent Kelly.
Mr. Chair and members, I'm deferring my report because I have used up the entire alphabet tonight. But I would like to thank the board because we're concluding a school year, and I want to thank you for your leadership, governance, and guidance. Without you, the students would not have walked across the stage at graduation. So thank you as well. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Continuing to move on. Next up is the introduction of the incoming Valley View principal. I believe Lindsay is going to come up for this one.
Chair Larkin, members of the board, Superintendent Kelly, it's my pleasure to be here tonight to introduce the next Valley View principal, Edward Fellows. He made the move from Texas up here, so I told him to keep waiting for the Minnesota winters. But he said he's very excited to experience those again. He's been an elementary principal in Texas since 2004, and in the last couple weeks moved his family back up here, so I'm going to pass it over to him.
Well, good evening, board and Columbia Heights Public Schools. First of all, I want to tell you how grateful and humbled I am for having this opportunity to become part of the Valley View Elementary staff and family. I have with me my motley crew. Jenny Beth Fellows is Holden Eddie Jr., and that is Grandma Amelia. And this is Edelyn, the one with the pigtails and spirit to her. And then we have Emmy Beth, and then my oldest daughter, Danielle. And so we're really excited to not just work at Columbia Heights, but be part of the family and help out the community. I had the easy job of driving the U-Haul and towing a car from Fort Worth. She had the hard job of driving all of them from Fort Worth. And so I'll take that anytime. And so if you ever need to increase your attendance at board meetings, I'll just invite my family, and we can easily double that. And so once again, thank you for allowing me this opportunity to be part of your school family.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm excited to know if you're going to continue on with the tradition of calling it the Valley View Elementary School, or, yeah,
We're,
thinking about it.
I'm meeting with Mr. Fort this week. So. Yeah.
Okay, did you have some more?
I just welcome. Thank you so much for becoming
you.
part of our family.
Appreciate it.
Yep, welcome to your entire family as well.
Thank you, Mr. Larkin.
Welcome back to Minnesota.
Yep, good to be back home.
And I'll be checking in with you mid-January to see just how excited you are about getting that Minnesota winter experience. So, okay. All right, thanks a lot.
look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Have a great night. Next up is the Strategic Direction C, know and honor who we are to build strong relationships. And I believe Willie and Laura. Very cute.
Good evening, Chair Larkin, members of the board, Superintendent Kelly. It is our privilege tonight to walk us through a review of the 2016-17 school year, focusing on Strategic Direction C from our district-wide strategic roadmap. Again, our mission statement of our district is to create worlds of opportunity for every learner, and we believe that through focusing on this strategic direction with knowing and honoring who we are, we really are deeply investigating how we're providing services for students and families to ensure that we are providing those worlds of opportunities. So with our core values, this presentation is going to focus on community, excellence, integrity, respect, and courage.
Strategic directions. A, expand access and opportunities by turbocharging what works and redesigning what needs to be better. Innovate to close the achievement gap with accountability and efficiency. And again, as Laura mentioned, knowing and honoring who we are to build strong relationships. Our focus tonight. D, acknowledge and address tensions and opportunities for employments and partnership between employees. E, tell our story. Brand development, reputation management to increase partnership and enrollment. And F, remain physically responsible.
So with C1 of the strategic direction, C is really focusing on increasing enrollment in our pre-AP and AP classes for students of color in comparison with their white peers. And we are very excited to announce that we did step up a level in this year. Going back to the 2016 AP Small District of the Year award from the College Board, we really have seen some really fantastic growth in our students as we've provided them with a higher level of challenge and access to rigorous courses in partnership with the higher level of support. And so we're seeing that students of all backgrounds are accessing the same classes. And so I just wanted to share the next slide shows a side-by-side comparison of the Columbia Heights High School enrollment and the pre-AP and AP enrollment of the high school. And as you can see, they are almost identical. And so we're very, very excited about that every student is feeling that they have access to those classes, and above and beyond that, they're seeing success on the exams that they're taking. The next piece has to do with curriculum that is enriched with a variety of cultural perspectives. And I know we've come to the board frequently talking about different things that we're working on to embed these perspectives into the curriculum, specifically with the Native American strand and work with the K-5 trunks over the last couple of years. So we stepped up a level in this area as well this year. So 80% or more of our courses contain that enriched curriculum. And so there also has been a lot of work done to ensure that there are texts written from multiple perspectives in all classrooms, and so a lot of focus on our overall district-wide literacy goals for this school year. So we're very excited about this and looking forward to continued progress. C3 has to do with family involvement, and the wording of this is very specific to our REACH program, which was implemented this fall for all of the elementary schools. And so we worked with teachers to really identify families that would really benefit from this curriculum that's very focused on teaching families what the academic school looks like, helping them understand what MCA scores are, different components of the school day, making sure that we're giving families the skills that they need to really advocate for their children so that they're able to access everything that they need and find success in their classes. So out of all of the families identified, we had just over 60% of those families that were engaged in the REACH program, and that is a 6-week curriculum in which families come once a week, and there's a graduation process at the end. And we've, based on parent surveys, received a lot of great feedback on that program, so we're looking forward to targeting larger groups of families and hoping to see those numbers increase in the future.
C4, we're at level 5, which is no change from last year. Equity teams in all the buildings still making progress, continuous progress, ongoing trainings throughout the year, and we're working now with District 916 and Phyllis Braxton of Pink Consulting. So again, we very strong equity teams in each of the buildings, good professional development, courageous conversations are happening, book clubs, data review. All the teachers are reflecting. There's a sincere effort on the part of all the staff to reflect on how the things that we're doing with our students, how we can improve our communication and best teach students of in a highly diverse population or community. So we want to do what's best for students, and staff are sincerely making an effort to do that. C5. This is level 4 for us. We still have room for improvement, but as Laura mentioned about REACH, is very strong, ongoing. Recently there was a powwow, well-attended. Avid family nights are happening. I know as part of our big family night, we had an Avid session, and as we have implemented the program over the last several years, we try to keep our parents updated about the program, what it means, what they can expect. The same thing is happening in our other buildings. Avid is in every building now in Columbia Heights. Yeah, all schools sponsor family nights or events to promote parent involvement in schools. There's several that are mentioned that I talked about. This year at Valley View, 4th and 5th grade teachers were part of the PAS, which is Partnership for Academic Success. And it's an opportunity to have extended conference time with parents. Teachers share information about math, reading strategies, and in some cases, they develop materials for the parents to take home and use with their students, again, to help them improve and be successful in school. C6, we are at level 2. First of all, just some information about the population of our district and the breakdown. American Indian / Alaska Native, we have 82 students, which is 2.6%. Asian Pacific Islander, 183 students, 5.8% of our district population. Hispanic, 966 students, 30.6%. Black not of Hispanic origin, 1,155 students, which is 36.5% of district population. White not of Hispanic origin, 775 students. All students, 3,161. The good news is that 4 of the 5 ethnicities have behavior reported that's below their population in the district. The not so good news is one, our black students are 36.5% of the district population, but as reflected here, 61% of the behavior. So with that discrepancy, that puts us at level 2, which is 24.3%.
And just to piggyback off of that, this, is something that we are very aware of. And so going through this process is really identifying things that we're doing in order to take action to shift this so that we're not continuing to see this discrepancy. Several years ago, we actually were identified by the state of Minnesota as having a very large discrepancy. And so we're very happy to be off of that list from the state. And we've seen a lot of gains in this area. But obviously, as Principal Fort said, we have a long way to go. And so going back to the previous direction where we talked about the equity teams, that's a lot of the work that those teams are doing. So making sure that we're having the professional development needed for teachers and all staff so that we can be addressing students with that equity lens. And then also, I know our elementaries have been doing some of the trauma-informed practices instruction, and so making sure that we're seeing behaviors as a function of communication and really looking deeper and trying to find out what the student is attempting to communicate. And so as we as a district acknowledge this, there are a number of things that we're doing in order to address it and continue to move forward and decrease that discrepancy.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. Thank you for bringing that up. I think, at Valley View, we had a 33% decrease in our referrals and suspensions this year. And I think it can be attributed to a lot of the things that are happening, such as the AVID program, the parent involvement piece that I mentioned, the PAS. I think those things I think it's making a difference. Our RC, Responsive Classroom, I think just to focus on academics, school-wide, district-wide, is making a difference. So I thank you for bringing that up. And we're pleased that some of the things that we thought should be happening are working, apparently working in the building. So we're very pleased that we're keeping more of our kids in the classroom and keeping them where they need to be, and hopefully then that's going to help enhance their learning.
C7 speaks to our licensed staff demographics as compared to our student population. So as we talk about the curricular side of things and making sure that students see themselves reflected in their classroom and in their curriculum, we also are very aware that this is an important component when we're out hiring and recruiting staff. And so in comparison with a 10 district cohort group, we are currently falling at level 3, so the top 6 out of our district cohort group of 10, really looking at surrounding districts and comparing ourselves that way. But we are also, again, with this, taking steps to move forward with this. We spent time at the Education Job Fair at the Convention Center this spring, making sure that we're really recruiting. We've had tables at all of our community events, picnics with the Columbia Heights Police Department and the City of Columbia Heights. And so continuing to take steps to really recruit qualified staff of color into the district. C8 speaks to students and families feeling welcomed by the district and schools, and this is a really fun one to present because we are at level 5 according to the 2016 student survey that was conducted with the elementary level and the 2015 climate survey with the secondary students. 95.8% of family and students stated that they felt welcome in our schools, and so that's a statistic that we're very proud of and want to ensure that we continue to make families feel welcomed at that high rate. The last strategic direction is C9, and it has to do with the digital divide or access outside of school, especially as we're moving forward with personalized learning initiative and making sure that more and more students every year have access to those devices, where we also take time to survey and analyze that students have access to technology at home. In this particular survey, it had to do with internet access at home. And so 94% of students reported having access to internet at home. So that puts us well above the 90% or level 5 range. So our overall score, we are in level 5, which we're very excited about with this strategic direction. We're continuing to do a lot of work surrounding all of these components, but saw an increase from the previous school year, a 3.95 in 2016 to a 4.2 in 2017. At this time, there are no governance questions. We're just reporting the information on the strategic direction. Does anybody have any questions?
I do. And it's just, if you don't have the answer, it's okay. It's just a curiosity question on C6 under the referrals. Do you know, of those numbers, how often is that repetitive? I mean, it's the same student over and over, and it doesn't change that it's an issue and that you're obviously working on different things to try and correct that, but does that have an impact on the number, or is it oftentimes, is it the kids?
It does have an impact. The numbers that were reported for this are unduplicated student counts.
Unduplicated.
Unduplicated, so it's not a one student getting multiple referrals. These were just individual
Numbers
students
for
each
tonight
time.
were, okay, cool. Thank you very much.
I have one question.
Yep.
On that same topic, have we looked into a restorative justice type model for discipline in addition to suspensions or other types of behaviors?
Yeah, that's a great question. We've done a number of different trainings and work with staffs. We actually, at one of our buildings a few years ago, had a behavioral consultant come in and really take a broad scale review. And so there are a number of those components that are put into place, and specifically with our support staff, our social workers and psychologists do a lot of work with students to build up those skills that are necessary and making sure that students understand the impact of their behaviors on others. So there are definitely components of those restorative practices that are in place in all of our buildings. All right, thank you.
Could I just want to say, take a second to thank you, school board, for all your work over the years, 7 years that I've been in the district. It's been a pleasure being here. And I'm excited for the district and the direction that this district is headed. Lots of good things are happening, and it was just, I'm very fortunate to have been selected to be the Valley View principal 7 years ago, and I, bittersweet about turning over the reins to Mr. Fellows. He looks a great fellow, and we are going to talk next week. And I'm not sure about the Valley View part. That might be something that we'll see what we do with that one. Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're not getting away quite that easy, Willie. Okay. We actually have a certificate that we would like to present to you, and I'll read it first and then ask you to come up if you would. This is to Willie Fort on behalf of the Columbia Heights Public School District. Thank you for the tremendous job done to support the development and growth of Valley View Elementary School, students, staff, and community. Thank you for your commitment to excellence. So, why don't you come on up if you would?
With him.
Will, if I could get you to pull up the chair just for a second, one more time, just where you were there. I just want to make sure that the other board members had I mean, we, as a board, you know, I was saying thank you. I want to make sure that, you know, anyone else that wanted to say anything, you know, nice or whatever about you, that they'd have that opportunity. So, if anyone.
I have something. I think we had the pleasure of working closely together that year that you were the Columbia Academy principal as well. And so personally, thank you for your dedication to all our students, not just at Valley View, but district-wide, and stepping up to take that role. As a parent, I truly appreciated your leadership that year, and I just really thank you for the work that you've done.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Actually, you've been the principal over at Valley View as long as I've been on the board. I think the first meeting that I actually attended was where you were introduced. So it's really going to, you've been here the whole time, you know, but I'm really going to miss your far-seeing enthusiasm. I think that's the best way of putting it, you know. The recruitment, I mean, you've really had boots on the ground out there, getting out there to meet the community. And it was very inspiring. And I thank you so much. It's been great working with you.
Thank you.
Same. Thank you, Willie. I appreciate everything you've done for the district and for Valley View, and I wish you good luck and enjoyment in your retirement. So,
Thank you.
And just another thank you. I think that I've just really enjoyed watching the relationships you've had with the families and students. It was, you know, noticed, and same as what Lorian was saying, was the year at Columbia Academy as well. It was definitely noticed, and we just appreciate everything you've done. Thank you.
Thanks.
I think the big thing I noticed about your leadership was the sense of pride you developed in the students and the staff there. I do truly love the Valley View Elementary. It says something about the culture you're creating for the kids and the pride you want them to take in their education and being a part of this community. So thanks so much for demonstrating that to all of us. Yeah.
Thank you.
Principal Ford, everyone's looking at me, but I know that I did talk at the retirement party, and I'm going to, of course, talk about you at the retreat, where you'll be toasted and roasted a little bit this week. But we call you the statesman, and that's for a reason. The experience you brought to the district was a gift. What you're leaving for us, for the building blocks for Mr. Fellows and the students and the parents and the staff, is a tremendous foundation upon which to build. And I will be ever grateful that you decided to come across the street and be our principal. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Willie. Thanks much.
Thank you.
Okay, next up will be presented with recommendations for the LEAP.
LEAP pilot.
Chair Larkin, members of the school board, Superintendent Kelly, Principal Michelle DeWitt, and I are here to present information on the LEAP pilot at Highland Elementary School. So of course, our mission is to create worlds of opportunity for every learner, and we feel that this presentation on LEAP addresses our core values of excellence and collaboration.
The LEAP classroom at Highland is a multi-age pilot classroom serving gifted and talented students in grades 3 through 5. Learning, enlightenment, acceleration, and progress creates the word LEAP, something a little bit different than just saying the gifted and talented class.
Mm-hmm. So this evening, we're presenting you with information, and I'll be back June 27th with a governance question asking to approve to end what has been a 2-year pilot of the LEAP program at Highland Elementary and to simply establish it as an academic program at Highland. So some of the components that we've developed over the last 2 years of LEAP, of course, is providing professional development for the teacher and our gifted and talented coordinator. So Hormel in southern Minnesota every year offers a national conference, and so our staff are able to attend that. We have great support from the University of St. Thomas through Dr. Karen Westberg, who has come into the classroom, supported, also was a part of developing what the curriculum and what the course would look like. The Minnesota Department of Education offers a series on gifted and talented throughout the year, which we're able to attend. And then there's the Minnesota Educators of Gifted and Talented is a network that offers different workshops as well. The curriculum development started back in June of 2015. I think upstairs in the Teaching and Learning Conference Room every day for 30 days, there was a team of people working in that conference room developing a 3-year curriculum because kids are able to enter into the LEAP program at grade 3, continue on in grade 4 and 5, and so we needed to develop 3 distinct years worth of curriculum. I met with the teacher today, along with our curriculum coordinator and gifted coordinator, to begin again that curriculum development process, looking at going into year 3 next year. We also offer the teacher quarterly planning time and then support throughout the school year. Another major component of LEAP is parent communication. So the LEAP, Highlands LEAP website is full of information for parents. There's also a newsletter that goes home. The teacher emails or uses the phone to call parents. And then each year, and Principal DeWitt's going to share some of this survey information with you, each year we survey the students and the families of LEAP.
All right, so a parent survey went out via email. And the responses that we received back were, again, for the second year in a row, very overall positive responses. The first question asked, to their opinion, what extent does participation in the LEAP program influence enthusiasm for learning? And the parents responded back to a great extent. In your opinion, to what extent does participation in LEAP program influence a student to value the process of learning? Again, to a great extent. In the question, in your opinion, to what extent does the LEAP program provide enough challenge for gifted students in reading? And again, to the majority, to a great extent, and to a few adequately. A quote from one parent, this program has been very beneficial for my child. We have seen a lot of growth academically and emotionally. Our child loved the passion projects. And another parent responded back, LEAP has been an incredible program for our child. She loves school and her LEAP friends. The student surveys are taken in science class. They're given by myself. They're anonymous. I give all of the students pencils. I ask them to return it to a basket, shuffle them up so that there really isn't a way of knowing who said what. I review the data because I don't know the student's handwriting. And I really beef the students up prior to the survey and talk about, this program is a 3-year program, especially if there are third graders. What are some things that you would like to change or ways that we can enhance the program? So really try to elicit that
kind of minor tweaks or programmatic change that we hope that the students will articulate. But again, very positive results received from the students as well. Does the program provide enough challenge for me in reading? The majority of the students agreed, some strongly agreed. One student said they didn't know. And again, you know, these are third graders, so you have to take into account, for some of them are third graders, the age. Does the program provide enough challenge in math? And overall, strongly agree. A few students agree. Does the LEAP program challenge me to do my best? Again, majority of the students strongly agreed with that statement. Student quote, I like LEAP because it challenges me in different ways. I think LEAP is challenging and fun. Zena and I, when we read through the student quotes or the comments that they made, almost every student used the word challenge. Mm-hmm. It was just a uniform word through every survey that we received back. I think LEAP is a great place to learn. It makes me a better learner, and I like how it challenges me. So again, that theme of challenge running through it. The students are really excited about the opportunity to provide feedback to us, and like I said, overall very, very positive. The things that we get back about for areas of growth are considering they like field trips with just the LEAP class. They like being able to, or it's mixed feelings about participating in art, music, and Phi-Ed with their same grade peers. We've had a fair amount of feedback saying they'd like to participate in specialists with just their LEAP class, but it's very difficult because we have standards in each grade level. And so that for the specialist teachers to be able to compile those standards would be very difficult to make it meaningful for the students. But I think because they become such a tight-knit group, it's just that wanting to stay together as a core group.
So moving on to some of the academic results for this year, looking at the NWEA map, which measures growth, we're looking at very high percentage of students, 88% of the students making high growth in reading and 100% of the students making high growth in math. Then moving to proficiency, these are our preliminary MCA scores for the LEAP classroom. So again, overwhelming number of students exceeding standards in reading, math, and science. We have based this program on a lot of different research. I'm not going to go into detail there, but what does some of the research say about a program like LEAP? This type of grouping, according to the research, is effective and efficient. Students see significant gains with this type of grouping, and particularly some studies show about mathematically talented students are able to grow conceptual understanding, abilities to explain their reasoning when taught within that peer group. So that's some of the research that we're looking at to base our analysis on of the program. So some of the things that we're considering as we do our analysis and compile all of the results over this 2-year pilot, and things that we're considering is the cost, of course, and that includes retaining students and attracting additional students, the opportunities and academic challenges, taking into consideration the results of the student and parent survey, looking at consistency among schools, and then vertically aligning with gifted programs in grades 6 through 12. So our next steps, we'll be back to the school board to ask for approval to establish LEAP as an educational program and no longer run it as a pilot. We would like to continue to study LEAP, looking at the feasibility of replicating to other schools, and then if that is determined to be feasible, then looking at the possible replication at starting either with one or both, depending on the study, elementary schools. So again, I will be bringing forward the governance question on June 27th to approve ending the pilot phase and moving into an academic program at Highland.
So I have just one thing to add. I was going to slip it in earlier in the presentation, but I'm really excited to announce that next year we do have 20 students in the LEAP class. So we have grown from our first year of 16 students to 20, which may not seem like a large difference, but with the criteria that we have, it is pretty narrow criteria. So, and we also drew a student back from Robbinsdale, so a girl and her brother that live in the Highland Attendance area. The girl will be a fourth grader next year, has been attending Robbinsdale Public Schools since she was in kindergarten, found out about the program and is coming back, including her brother, and he'll be a first grader next year. So one small anecdotal piece of information about the word of mouth and ability to attract back students as well.
Any questions?
I just have one quick question. When you were talking about the surveys and feasibility for other schools, what is the timeline that you're looking at that for the surveys? And I guess just kind of, can you answer that?
So we survey the parents and the students in the spring. So it's their opinion of how the school year went. So the survey that is presented in here is the students in the class and the parents of the children in the class.
I'm sorry, just to clarify about rolling it out to the other schools. I apologize if I wasn't clear.
The plan is to spend next school year really studying what that will mean in terms of cost, enrollment levels, marketing, attrition, retention. So looking at next school year and hoping to bring forward the request to the school board for the following school year, 2018-19.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple things, and I know you're probably not surprised that I wanted to say a couple things. But just for the sake too of the group, my daughter has been participating in the LEAP class for the last 2 years, and I think that as a parent and as a board member both, I think it's important to note that it really I've been impressed, our family has been impressed with the academic rigor that has been presented to her and the opportunity that she has had really academically. However, in conjunction with that, the collaboration and the fun that she has had through that process. And so it's been pretty exciting. Her twin brother has actually been pretty jealous that he hasn't been in that class because she's been doing some great things. And I do appreciate that. And I think the other component of this that we didn't see in the survey as much because it's hard to test is not just the academic success that the children have had in this program, but working with our gifted and talented students so that they are more comfortable taking risks because of the peer group that they're with and the challenge and being more confident in what they're doing. And we have seen in our daughter a tremendous growth for the past 2 years because of that safe environment to take some of those risks in the LEAP class. So thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we'll be hearing about the Anchor program. Yeah, a pilot, an update on that.
Good evening again, Board Chair Larkin, members of the board, Superintendent Kelly. Tonight, Marcia Walker and I are here to give an end of the first semester update on the Anchor pilot program. And as Director Stenvik said, we will also be providing the information update so that on the June 27th board meeting, we'll be coming back with the governance question of moving the Anchor program from a pilot to a stable program at the high school. So again, with our mission statement, we are looking to create worlds of opportunity for every learner. And in the case of the Anchor Therapeutic School program, it's really focused on providing that support and those opportunities for students who are struggling with mental illness and need the additional support of a therapeutic school program to learn the coping strategies necessary to be successful in school. Tonight, our presentation is going to focus on the core values of community, excellence, collaboration, courage, and innovation. So just in review, the Anchor Therapeutic School program was implemented or started for the second semester this year, so at the very end of January. So we have a very limited scope of what we've been evaluating as far as its efficacy as a program. But to review our program goals, really first and foremost wanting to offer that therapeutic school environment for students who otherwise would not be attending school. The students who are currently in the Anchor program are those who really had a lot of anxiety and school avoidance, and so weren't coming to school. And so wanting to make sure that we're providing that environment so that students can access their curriculum and find success in school. The second program goal is to make sure that we're providing those coping strategies and skills through ongoing individual and group therapy necessary for students so that they are able to, in the future, transition back into the mainstream school environment. And then again, planning for that post-secondary piece with the third goal, ensuring that all students remain on a pathway toward graduation.
The intake of new students into the Anchor program is a continuous process with a capacity of 8 students, preference being given to high school age students. Our school social workers and our school psychologists can make referrals to the program by completing a referral packet, which is also verifying the listed criteria, which is a qualifying DSM-5 diagnosis, which is listed in a diagnostic assessment dated within the last 6 months, current insurance, and then the referral packets are then reviewed by the Anchor staff.
So as far as a description of the program goes, it really is a small-scale, self-contained environment. And so the program consists of a full-time therapist through Nexus Youth and Family Solutions, who is our partner, a full-time teacher, and then a full-time education assistant. And so the curriculum has been the APEX online curriculum, so it's all standards aligned, and students are able to access the courses that they need, being a program that serves multiple grade levels. We currently have 6 students in the program, and they've all been at different grade levels, and so needing to recover different credits or just needing to access curriculum at different levels. So we really have been working to address the second bullet, the modified schedule. Students aren't on the same block schedule as the high school, even though they have the same start and end times, but really making those tweaks and adjustments throughout the semester to make sure that students have a strong balance between the therapeutic time that they need and then also the academic time. And again, with the graduation planning, there have been multiple meetings with families and students to make sure that they know where they're at, where they're making gains, where they need to make some additional headway as far as the credits that they're earning to stay on track to graduate. As with other programs in which a student would come back to the high school from an outside day treatment placement, students do also get elective credit for the time spent in their skills groups, individual therapy, and then group therapy, just because there is a lot of time spent with those seat hours. So making sure that we're honoring that for the students has been really important as well.
So like Laura said, the Anchor students participate in daily group and individual therapy. That's provided by the Anchor therapist. Families are also encouraged to participate in family therapy, and family sessions are being offered through the summer. Skills training is also part of the program, and skills training is really working on promoting resilience and improving social functioning and those transition school skills for students. Like Laura also said, there are 6 students that are currently enrolled in the program, and all the students have an individual treatment plan with goals and objectives that they work on with the Anchor therapist, and they're all engaged in the individual therapy. Again, families are encouraged to participate in the family therapy, and all of our families have had at least one family therapy session. And some of the families have also agreed to have the summer sessions with the family therapy. So we're really excited about that. That's one of our highlights.
I have spent some time talking with Nexus staff, and they are really pleased with the progress that the individual students have made on their individual treatment plans. So these are based on their diagnostic assessment, so really setting goals and objectives related specifically to their mental health diagnosis. And the students are all making really great gains on those goals, and we're looking forward to continuing that. With it being just a one-semester program, we still are gathering more of that data and look forward to seeing how students progress going into another full school year. The credits earned piece I touched on a little bit, but all students have earned credits, both academic credits through the APEX online curriculum and through their participation in the therapeutic interventions. And the last bullet we're very excited about is we've seen a really drastic increase in attendance. So for all of the students in the Anchor program, there's an average of an 18.25 increase in daily attendance. And so really, as I mentioned before, these are students who profile as really easy to fall through the cracks because they're not externalizing what they're dealing with. They're not aggressive. They're not showing overt behaviors. They're really the ones who are quiet and on the sidelines and not coming to school. And there's one particular student who between first and second semester had a 36% increase in daily attendance. So just the fact that students are feeling welcome and willing to come every day to school, we think is a really great success. So as we mentioned, we partner with Nexus Youth and Family Solutions, and we've been very, very pleased with our partnership with them. The therapist that they have placed with us has been just fantastic. They also have allocated an additional therapist to come in case of a personal illness or something like that, but just the secondary therapist has started to come every Friday just to provide another face in the program so that students have another person that they can connect with, which has been really wonderful. And then their supervisor has been out numerous times and has provided ongoing consultation, both for the therapist, for the teacher in the program, for Marcia and myself, and has been really instrumental in helping us reframe our thinking as we're moving forward with having a therapeutic school program in the district. Another thing that we're really celebrating is the successful referral and entrance of a new student into the program. As Marcia outlined, we do have an internal referral process, and so we had a student who was placed in an outpatient program specifically focused on eating disorders, and having the Anchor program was a really fantastic segue for that student to come back into the school versus being in an outside partial outpatient hospitalization program and then jumping right back into a typical mainstream class schedule. We saw a lot of success with that student being able to come into the Anchor program and really create those connections and relationships. And then the family therapy piece, I think, is also a really big success that we wanted to celebrate, especially when we talk about historically, students who have needed these types of programs have been placed in out-of-district settings, and so a family in Columbia Heights has a difficult time accessing a program outside of this city for that family therapy, and so it's been really fantastic to have the program available here within our community so that families don't have that added stress of having to get to a city far away.
Mm-hmm. Like we said before, too, the program, we've had this dramatic increase in attendance with students, which has been really exciting. Laura mentioned the student that had the 36% increase, and that increase in attendance also increases engagement with the group therapy, receiving individual therapy, having engagement with the academic curriculum, and also, I'm going to speak a little bit more about, but those positive social relationships, actually making friends at school, and so that having that connection in a safe environment. One of the things, we have an excellent teacher in the program for this pilot, and the teacher has incorporated direct instruction as well as utilizing the APEX curriculum, just really bringing in that differentiation piece. There's pieces that the APEX curriculum that may need to be retaught or pre-taught from, learning vocabulary or just bringing a skill so the student can then work on the concept. That's part of the APEX curriculum, and so done a very nice job providing kind of blended direct instruction with the online curriculum. And again, that positive social experience, just anecdotally, and I think that Laura would concur with this, going into the Anchor classroom and seeing students engage with each other and sharing their own interests with each other as well as staff, smiling, enjoying school, that's just been a huge highlight that's not necessarily quantifiable, but is definitely observable, and wanted to share that with you as well.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that. We've had students who have also made connections, so over the weekend are getting together, and a couple of them are working to develop a board game together. So what seem like small things are really great successes for the students in the program. We also conducted surveys, and so just wanted to highlight some items from the student survey, that 100% of the students strongly agree or agreed with the following statements: that Anchor was a welcoming environment, I learned new skills and coping strategies, and I created new friendships. And we really saw all of those things manifest in the classroom. So as we look at the future plan, we are really looking to continue to build that toolbox for the curriculum. As Marcia stated, we have made a lot of modifications and adjustments, and really looking at the program in 6-week blocks, making those changes to the schedule as students are, as we've seen that they've struggled with the length of time an academic block is. And so we've made a lot of those adjustments throughout the first semester of implementation, and we're continuing to look to build that toolbox for schedule modification, and then the combined online curriculum, and then also the direct instruction. We are also looking forward to reviewing more of that therapeutic progress data, and have been in contact with Nexus regarding the data team that they have on staff, so that they can provide us with some of that as well, because we really want to make sure that students are receiving the supports that they need in order to be successful, not only academically, but also social emotionally, so that they can be prepared to be citizens as they move forward.
Which segues nice into the next bullet point, which is we're excited to do work with the Anchor staff about increasing areas within the community. So the Anchor program itself is a safe environment. So we see students taking risks and rising up to challenges with curriculum and with social relationships. But we're excited to do work about talking about how our students could also be engaged in community activities outside of that safe environment. And then also some of the things that we'll be working on this summer with looking at the referrals that are coming in for the program and evaluating those.
So again, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, I will be coming back at the end of this month with the governance question of moving this Anchor Therapeutic School program from a pilot to a full program at the high school. So with that said, does anybody have any questions?
I just have one. Do we have any students that are on a waiting list?
We don't at this time. We really, with it being a new program, really, I know that Marcia worked really hard first semester to work with the support staff teams at the middle school and the high school to identify students that are most at risk, and really the students who were in that crisis point of really needing access to a therapeutic school program. We have maintained an open access for referral forms, and with that one student that has entered throughout this last semester, we still had the capacity for additional students. So we have a couple of students that the social workers and psychologists have referred, which Marcia mentioned we'll be reviewing, but at this point we're not at capacity. So we're looking forward to welcoming some additional students into the program.
And this is more of a transitional kind of a support system. So it's not a student that would enter it may not stay in at their entire high school. At least that's certainly the goal, always.
Yeah, that would be the goal, that we're always looking at providing students with the skills necessary so that they can transition back into the mainstream environment, with the primary focus of accessing post-secondary education and wanting to make sure that we're doing that early intervention, giving students the support they need now so that as they grow older, they'll be successful in school.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
I have one question. It might not be an easy one, but I wasn't here when this was originally talked about. Can you just give me a quick explanation on how this is funded and kind of what that looks like?
Yes. Well, we had historically worked with a couple of districts for when students access day treatment programming. So historically, we've been able to access a program through the Mounds View district. And you can jump into, Marcia, because you've been working with this longer than me. I also am new to this. But Mounds View closed their doors to open enrollment a year ago. And so at that point, we knew that without access, our ability to access this program, we needed to create something in our district so that we could could support students. When we place a student in a program similar to this, the NETS programming being one that we've utilized in the past through Mounds View, it's between a $25,000 to $40,000 expenditure for the district for a school year for a student. And so being able to maintain those students in our district with the staffing provided of a full-time teacher and a full-time EA has been a cost reduction for us to be able to keep students in our district.
Thank you.
And the therapeutic part of it is funded through health insurance or medical assistance. So we don't pick up that cost, and that is, we collaborate with Nexus on that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks.
Next up, Every Student Succeeds Act grants. Zena.
Chair Larkin, members of the board, Superintendent Kelly, I'm here to present this evening our preliminary outlook for next school year on Title I, II, and III under the Every Student Succeeds Act. Of course, our mission is to create worlds of opportunity for every learner, and this presentation will focus on the core values of excellence, integrity, and innovation. On June 27th, I will bring this governance question back to the board for approval of the preliminary ESSA, or Every Student Succeed Act, title funding for the 2017-18 school year. So let's start with Title I. What is Title I? It's a federal entitlement program to ensure that all children have fair, equal, and significant opportunity to obtain a high-quality education and reach at a minimum proficiency on challenging state academic achievement standards and assessments. So the funding that comes from Title has to be supplemental. So it's not our general fund, it's not our core programming, it's all in addition to, and it's based on our free and reduced count. Any of our key activities that I'm going to present to you for Title I are created and determined by a team that includes teachers, district staff, and parents. All need to come together to create the plan each year. Some of the key activities for Title I, of course, are supplemental academic supports. For example, without Title I, we wouldn't be able to fund our elementary specialists. The elementary teachers would teach the science content in their classrooms. Instead, we're able to provide our students with that lab experience that they deserve. Also, different interventions in reading and math. Some of the other key components that are mandatory as part of this funding are parent involvement. Some of our elementary liaisons are partially funded through this, and then other parent engagement activities. Another component that is mandatory is continuous improvement strategies. We fund teachers and teams of teachers to do some deep dives with data analysis during out-of-school time. There's one example. Also, a portion of Title Fund goes to support students who are homeless or students who are in foster care. And then our local non-public schools are able to access some of this funding as well as part of the requirements. So taking a look at the budget for Title I. Now again, these are projected and preliminary. At the end of the summer, hopefully at the end of July, we will be receiving our actual numbers through the Department of Education. And at that time, we call together the team of parents and teachers and school staff to create the plan. So our preliminary allocation, as you can see, what we're projecting is $935,000. A couple of months ago, Superintendent Kelly and I received a notice from the Department of Education to be prepared for a sequestration. So what that means is they would be reserving some of the funds and we wouldn't be allocated our full funding. When Superintendent Kelly and I were at professional development sessions or informational sessions at the Department of Education, they informed us that the state of Minnesota is seeing more of an economic boom or economic growth across the state as compared to other states in the nation. So again, this is federal funding. Therefore, they're projecting that the state of Minnesota will receive a smaller portion of the pie of title funding. So based on that, this is where our projection is at. And then, of course, as you can see, taking away the 10% or reserving that 10% for sequestration, if that will occur. We'll find out about that in the fall, if we will indeed need to reserve that amount of money for sequestration. With that being said, we'll have a healthy carryover for next year is what we're planning in order to prepare for some of those pieces. So there's the total there. As you can see on the budget, an overwhelming majority of this funding goes to fund a portion of our people, right? Our teachers, by and large, and other staff, non-licensed and licensed staff. So that's the priority, is to have as many high-quality people that we can for our kids. As you can see, some of the other, how the funding would break down in this preliminary budget per the mandatory areas that we need to provide. Moving on to Title II. Title II, again, is another federal entitlement program really focused on professional development for teachers and administrators. Also, similar to Title I, we need that team of teachers, parents, and school staff to come together to create the plans. We do that at the same time. Some of the key activities with this professional development funding focus on coaching for in-class coaching for reading, math, mentorship for our teachers, different training sessions, again, focusing on literacy, math, culturally relevant instruction, different professional learning communities, again, going deep with looking at data, consultative services with our early college programming and other leadership type opportunities for our staff. And then there is a small portion, again, for the non-public schools. So looking at the budget breakdown, again, the preliminary allocation, $122,000. We are anticipating sequestration or are preparing in case it happens. So I've got the 10% there reserved with the carryover. So really the breakdown is general professional development under those key activities that I listed, and then the required portion for Immaculate Conception, the non-public schools. Title III is our third entitlement program. Title III is really focused on supporting our English language learners. This is a very specific kind of strict funding stream. There's very specific things that we can spend it on. So some of the key activities are supporting teachers through coordination and staff development. Our summer reading program, which will be starting here in the next couple of weeks, where EL teachers bring bags of books to families' homes and do a reading lesson once a week throughout the summer, leave the books there with all the kids so they can read them for that week, and then they come back again with a whole new bag. It's like a library in their trunk of their car, right? And a teacher right at their doorstep. And then supplemental language support. So none of these funds can go, again, for the core curriculum or any of our core programming. It's all supplemental. And then the required area of family involvement as well. So we have EL family nights at our schools and other types of family support. So taking a look at the budget, we're preliminarily projecting about $95,000. It's a smaller budget with a carryover of $35,000. Sequestration, we're predicting, does not affect Title III, so you won't see the 10% reserve there. But again, supplementing salaries of staff is the overwhelming portion of all of these budgets. So again, I will come back on June 27th for the governance question, asking for approval of this preliminary Every Student Succeeds Act title funding for the 2017-2018 school year. And in the fall, we'll bring back more information on some of the specifics when we get them.
Thank you. Questions, anyone?
Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Next up, LEA authorization.
So in order, Chair Larkin, members of the school board, Superintendent Kelly, in order to accomplish and literally go into the system on MDE and click send and review all of those budgets and programming and oversee them. I will be coming on June 27th to ask for approval to name me as the LEA representative for our district to review and administer the Title I, II, and III programs. And the other information is in your board packet.
Any questions on that?
Well done.
Thanks, Tina.
Thanks.
Okay. Next up, Director Hennekins is going to talk about our TIES membership. Walking pretty good there.
Yeah, it's getting better. Brought your ice machine back too. Okay. All right, members of the board, Superintendent Kelly, Chair Larkin. Today I'm going to give a little presentation on TIES. For some of you, you are more familiar with the organization than others, so I want to start with a little background and then kind of dive into some of the additional information. So what is TIES? It does actually stand for something, Technology and Information Educational Services organization. Started in 1967. There are currently 48 member districts, and the collaborative is created through a joint powers agreement of those member districts. So TIES overall provides software systems, professional development, technology integration training for teachers, transportation outsourcing, technical consulting, hardware and software support, and internet services. So it covers a lot, and we are involved in a lot of those areas quite heavily. Don't worry about being able to read this map, but the organization, its members spread throughout Minnesota. That's really what this, from far north all the way down to the south of the state. So there's a lot of members in the district, just it's not in the metro area. There's a lot of outstate. I'm not going to go through all the names, but there are 48. I've just popped them up here. I highlighted Columbia Heights at the top in the middle. And I'll just kind of leave it here for a second. You can kind of glance at all the members. Some of you may not be aware. That's kind of a list of our current TIES members. So TIES mission, leveraging collective wisdom to make technology work across school communities. And the values of the organization cover service, collaboration, and innovation. So dedicating ourselves to focus on the needs of others, coming together to commit to shared goals and exceed expectations through clear and honest communication. Solutions created through insight and imagination. So those are the values of the organization, which we'll touch base on or touch back to later on. So I said we cover a lot of areas and the things that we engage with TIES in. So our district engagement with TIES as an owner member, one of the biggest is our student information system. So last year we transitioned to Synergy, which was the new student information system that the organization is providing. As you can see, there's a lot of components to that. So on the left or the right-hand side, you can see parent view and student view, that portal access to the student information system. Attendance, behavior, the gamut, grade book, all those components are built right into that student information system. Some of the other core components that we use, IQ, which is the main data access point for our staff, so the teachers, the one-click reports. EdSpring, which is a reading program, so we can do progress monitoring. So the students take a reading test throughout the year. Some students are taking it a few times through the year. Some students are taking it every couple weeks, depending on their need. And we can chart and progress monitor and see where they are and where they're growing, how they're growing. And right now, that's just focused with reading. Cognos, which is our data warehouse, bringing all the information in together, whether it's HR finance, or whether it's student information system, all the data is in one data warehouse. iContent is our records retention. So think of the old microfilm days. It's just a digital version of that. Moodle hosting, which is our learning management system at the high school, which kind of got cut off, sorry about that. And Keep Certified professional development tracking, which is very important to our teaching and learning department. I mentioned HR payroll. MyView, finance, our fee pay system, which just covers our activities, athletics, and food service, email archiving, internet service, and off-site backup disaster recovery. So that one obviously is incredibly important to me. Our entire infrastructure internally is backed up to TIES. Actually, it's transitioned over to their new data data warehouse that they have housed with a third-party company now. Also, professional development in TIES Ed. So things like the TIES Technical Conference, which is held in St. Cloud every year, which is more technical. So Corey and myself, our network manager and myself, attend. The TIES Winter Conference, which you guys have heard about before. Many of you have attended. Last year, 2016, was Empowering Learners, was the title of the conference. And that conference is over 3,000 teachers attending every year, teachers and administrators. They have a user conference for their products. Digital Learning Leaders is a group that it's kind of changed its name this year, but it's kind of made of new technology integration specialists. So there's some leaders within the organization in the TIES Ed group that kind of coach them through, and they work as a group. So many tech integration specialists in many districts are working together on projects and learning together. And then they have a general technology integration cohort for all technology integration specialists for our member districts, which we do engage in as well. So that's kind of all of the pieces of our involvement. You know, we do have workshops too that TIES does house. So what I want to talk about now is kind of transition into some of the changes that have been happening in the organization, kind of set a timeline to it. So kind of going back to 2014, some of you remember TIES executive director retiring under the financial issues that were raised within the organization. There was a lot of press on that. And the organization not operating in the black, operating in the negative. And the state actually stepped in with an audit to look into that. In the spring of 2015 is when TIES announced the discontinuation of the student information system. And it was conversations that districts were having with TIES on the need to transition to something new. And that transition kind of happened without any transparency to the districts. And so there was a lot of conversation about how they could be more transparent with that and moving forward. And when in spring 2016, when they announced the HR finance software system was going to change and they were looking for a new one, there was more transparency in that one than the student information system. And prior to that, I missed the CEO announced a new strategic planning process. And in that process, we were involved. Districts were involved. I was one of them that attended that process. And I think some of the things that came out of that process we felt were good as far as changes in the organization moving forward. Part of our concerns, and I'll get to some of those, is really how they translated what we said we needed as districts and what the organization actually put out. And that kind of goes to some of the membership conversations that I'm going to get into in a minute. So TIES did announce a new member owner model in their fee structure. And they changed also their fees for internet service, and they changed, kind of revamped their product pricing. So all of these things are costing us more money moving forward. So I want to start with kind of the new TIES ownership program and how they changed that. So previously, it was about a $3 a student cost, so on the left-hand side. And that was for our membership fees, and it covered things like professional development workshops with TIES. We had better rates as owners for the products. Better rates for the conference, so it was cheaper for us than it was for anybody from Minnesota or Wisconsin coming over to the conference, because there's a lot of states, out states. So those were the benefits of membership. And then, so that's what we used to pay. So now they're transitioning to a $5 membership program per student. So they're adding this $2 section on the right-hand side. So with those $2, what they're just saying is that we can allocate those $2 towards other services with TIES. And these services on the right-hand side are kind of new to all of us from the technology group, because these weren't things that we talked about, were not things that we talked about in the TIES strategic direction planning process. And they just kind of came out of, well, we're not quite sure where they came out of. So now we have this $2 additional fee. And you add on to that the increase in product fees, things are starting to add up. And so we're starting to look a little bit deeper into what our costs are and how those changes are impacting overall. So then in May 2017, this is very recent, the state of Iowa announces that it is terminating its contract with TIES and the EdSpring product. There was an article recently, and I'm sure many of you have seen that. It's a $14 million contract with Iowa, the state of Iowa, and that is the EdSpring product, which is the product that we do currently use for our reading intervention. So there's some uncertainty there on what that really means. We know it's a $14 million contract over a length of time. We don't know how that impacts the yearly budget of revenue within the organization, which kind of speaks to the transparency that we don't know that as member owners. And there's conversation about whether there'll be a legal battle over this or not, again, which we don't know as member owners, which we probably should know. Spring 2017, some TIES districts have begun to pass resolutions and submit letters of intent to end their membership with TIES. So we do know that there are already 4 or 5 districts that have submitted letters saying that they intend to end their membership with TIES. So another uncertainty is how that's going to impact us moving forward. Another ongoing issue is TIES has been decreasing staff and product offering since 2014, and this kind of goes back to the budget and trying to balance the budget, so they're decreasing staff, so definitely some concerns around being able to properly support the districts as members moving forward. And we got cut off from the bottom here, but the executive board has been exploring new models with the organization, and how that looks and feels moving forward, we don't know. We know there's a current set of bylaws that kind of govern things, and we know that the executive committee is looking at making changes to that, but we don't know how that's going to impact us members moving forward. So just to kind of lay out the concerns, all in bullet points. So costs beyond the new membership fee are concerns. So as we move forward in this new model of that additional $2, once we spend those $2 that can be allocated towards that list on that right-hand side, what are the additional costs going to be for us? We don't know. We don't know what those additional costs are going to be yet. Rising product costs now and in the future. Service and support products now and in the future. I mentioned decreasing staff, so how they can sufficiently support us as members, especially considering the number of members, is a high concern. And as I discussed, staffing changes and its impacts, the transparency of communicating in a clear and honest way. That's been a big one. And you remember I said that's a value of TIES. And there's been a lot of concern around that as changes have happened, where things are happening and then months later we hear rumors, and then suddenly, oh, this is what it's going to be, like the new membership. Which wasn't directly derived out of our strategic planning process that we were involved with. Another concern are liabilities and lawsuits of TIES that our district is responsible for now and in the future. So we know that we're a member. So in the bylaws, it does say that we're liable for the liabilities of the organization, and then if there are pending lawsuits, as indicated in this recent Iowa contract, that's a high-level concern for us. We don't know, so there's a lot of uncertainty. A lack of clarity around TIES bylaws and existing clauses, so there's a lot of vagueness in the bylaws, and I know that that's one of the things that the executive committee or board of TIES and the leadership are looking to change, but again, we don't know how that change is going to impact us. It's just going to be presented to us as this is the new change. So that's of a high level of concern. So there's definitely a lot of concerns moving forward within the organization. So based on all those concerns, one of the recommendation that administration would have is that Columbia Heights Public Schools would consider a letter of intent to withdraw from ties until a future study of the concerns and clarifying information can be obtained in the next year. So what we have, and I think maybe on the next slide, it talks about the bylaws and our removal and what that means. So any member may withdraw from ties and cause its representatives to cease to function in such a capacity upon written notice given to the clerk of ties and executive committee. Such notice shall be accompanied by a certified copy of the appropriate resolution of the school board of such member authorizing and directing such withdrawal of such member from ties. Any such withdrawal shall be effective at the end of the school year. This is the most important part, June 30th, and provided that the notice of withdrawal has been received by the ties executive committee no later than the preceding July. So if we give notice by July 31st of a letter of intent, then we have a full year to study and decide whether these changes are for the benefit of us or whether these changes are really not for the district and the students of this district. So it gives us that year because we need to give a year's notice. So, and at the end of that year's notice, we've talked to legal counsel on this. They're in the bylaws. There's no penalty. There's no reason why we can't rescind that if we decide that through that study over the next year that we're at where we need to be, the organization is moving forward, and we feel good about where we are with the organization. So really what this is doing is just giving us that year, because if we don't, after this time, after July 31st goes by, then it's 2 years before we can do this. So that means that we will be with the organization for another 2 years. And again, going back to some of the concerns, we don't know what the liabilities are. We don't know what those costs are. So there's a lot of uncertainty there. So but in the bylaws, it does say the withdrawing district shall pay for all services and supplies provided to it by ties after the effective date of its withdrawal according to the fee schedules for affiliates. So, anything that we have contracts for, we need to stand by. And liability costs are uncertain, though, at this time. And again, that's due to ties' lack of transparency in the financial area. We just don't know what our liability as a member district is. There's been numbers that have been floated around to different districts, different numbers, and so that's a high level of concern that we have not seen the budget. We don't know what those liabilities are, and we don't know what are our costs moving forward with that. So. And there really is an inability for the organization to give us a cost per student for exiting the organization right now. And again, like I said, the different districts have been told different things. So the number has ranged from $17 to $44 a student. So, that's can be a big impact for us. So it could be, $125,000 to $140,000 for this district worth of liabilities, possibly. So we're talking about a real number, but we have no idea right now. We just have not been given that information. Just transparency is not there. So really the governance question to the board will be, should the school board of Columbia Heights Public Schools, ISD 13, authorize and direct its superintendent to issue a notice of withdrawal of the district's membership in the Technology and Information Educational Services TIES Consortium effective July 1st, 2018. So that is the governance question to the board that we were looking to bring back for June 27th board meeting.
If I might just add that in the last 2 weeks, or so since the article came out, I have had direct conversations with the executive director, urging him to give us some transparency on these issues. And so far, nothing has been put out. And it's my understanding, through hearsay but not directly, that the executive board of TIES is studying a new governance structure, is looking at perhaps converting from an organization to a 501c3. There's multiple options on the table. In addition, since they're operating at a deficit, they're trying to take a look at this budgetary issue and perhaps resolve it or have some resolution, or perhaps not, and cut some more staff. And in addition to that, they may change policies and bylaws that would go through that executive board, which we would not even see until October. And so we always hear it's at the governance level, or the superintendents don't meet all that often. And so, although I'll be down there on Thursday for another project, it is like transparency is just not, it's just not there. So when we've talked about this, my mother used to have a saying, better be safe than sorry, in that it feels a little bit like WEMA when we were working on that, and then we debated back and forth, should we go or should we not? And then we put in our letter, and ultimately the board made its decision in the upcoming year. I think we'd like to afford the board and the admin the gift of time. To make sure that if this is right for us, we can stay in and feel good about it. And if it's not, that we'll at least know what our liabilities are for the upcoming year and pay those off, and then move on. And to also study where we would be moving to, what pieces, where we get our tactical support, et cetera. One last thing, it seems that since we've been in this new transition for TIES, they used to be a really good conduit, like a co-op for the products, so we'd get a cheaper price, but now we can go almost directly to the vendors and get a more affordable price without the middle person, and probably have more support. So those are the things we're experiencing, so that's why we brought it to you. And since we don't meet in July, we thought we'd bring it to you tonight, and I put some things in the update. And if things change, I would put more things in the update, but we really would like to bring this for your consideration by the end of the month, so we have options for study for next year.
Discussion or questions?
Yeah, I actually have. This is really, really disappointing. This was a really incredibly great organization and collaboration. You know, when I was the TIES, I guess I'm the person who goes to the stuff over at TIES. I'm not really a member, representative or anything. The idea of the collaboration was this district says, I really need to have this type of piece of technology to do this specific type of function for my district, and other districts could actually help to fund that, so in product development. And it's a great, but it doesn't look like they're in that type of a model situation anymore, which is a disappointment, because that I thought that was its greatest strength. Also, their staff reduction is down how much from 2014? I
I'm
mean,
not sure the exact number, but
it's pretty significant, last I heard, and it seems like that they're just kind of just holding on to little pieces that we can get here and there and everywhere, you know? Is there another place we could get something, you know, that is more of an à la carte kind of a deal, or it's sort of like a package deal? I'm concerned mostly about the data retention, because they're storing it off-site. I don't want to see anything happen to it, and they seem to be in a little bit of a spiral right now. And I don't want our records to get,
right.
yeah, I'd like to get them out.
In the bylaws, it is clearly stated that our data is our data, and it's a responsibility to get it to us. In what format could be a cost to us, but that the year will give us the time to be able to make the accommodations that we need if we decide that that's the best case for us. Some of the systems that we already have are actually third-party systems that are fairly easily transferred. The database is the database, and that can be hosted by someone else fairly easily. So we're not really super concerned about some of those systems, because it's time and effort, but it's the pieces are all there. And again, we'll have the year to kind of study what we're going to do moving forward, and whether there's another option or a group that can support some of what we're doing, or most of, or are we going to piece it out? Again, we'll have the year to kind of look at that. So a year does go by fast, but it does give us, I think, ample time to really study and look at where our best options are for these systems.
But for clarification, the governance question for us tonight is whether or not, as a board, we want to submit the intent to
Yes.
withdraw. I mean, if we don't do it by July 31st, we would literally have to wait another year to submit that letter. And you
Yep.
feel that the administrative piece of it, you've got ample time to look for other resources, where our data goes, other programs.
Yes.
So you really need us to make the decision of,
On
Whether or not
June
we're gonna
27th, make the decision whether we are going to, as a district, give that letter of intent.
any conversations or discussion regarding the letter of intent for the governance question.
I just want clarification. In this is, we can actually withdraw the withdrawal as well. Is that correct? If we decide that we're gonna-
Rescind.
Yeah.
Rescind, yeah.
Yep, we can do that, correct.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that that was
Yep,
clear.
we clarified that with our legal counsel, that in the bylaws, there's nothing that penalizes us or inhibits the ability for us to rescind the withdrawal.
As the bylaws are currently written, which you're saying we're
Correct.
actually having conversations about the governance model, which in theory could make things even more difficult to withdraw.
Feasibly, but I think as if we have already given our
That's what I
withdrawal
mean.
notice.
If we act within
Yeah.
the current bylaws, whatever they change, wouldn't
Correct.
necessarily impact us.
Correct.
Any other questions regarding the?
I have one question. So if we give the notice of withdrawal, nothing changes with our membership within that 1 year, which means we'll
Correct.
still have a seat at the table.
Correct.
Which hopefully means we'll still have some sort of input or
Yes.
potentially information through the year for the process.
Exactly. And I think Kathy and I both would agree. Kathy's been involved with TIES a lot more than I have. Or Superintendent Kelly's been involved a lot longer than I have with the organization. It is, and Laura, Director Palmer talked about it, that, the ideas of the organization are incredibly amazing as far as what it can provide. It's just not. So the hope is that there is the ability for the members and to work with the organization to kind of repair and make it a viable organization moving forward. But if we cannot do that, this gives us the ability to, not have to wait again that another year to make that decision. So we're moving ahead, and again, it gives us that year, moving ahead now and giving us that year.
And that'll be on the 27th.
That would be on June 27th, correct?
Any other questions or discussion related to that? Okay, thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up will be the K-12 activity update.
Members of the board, Chair Larkin, Superintendent Kelly. For our activities update, I'll begin our mission. We're creating worlds of opportunities. And as our core values indicate here, we're going to be looking at community collaboration and, of course, excellence. If we want to take a look at our spring numbers, just want to say that the spring numbers are the ending numbers, not the beginning numbers of the season. We actually lose numbers during the season for whatever reason. Baseball and softball, we finished with 41 athletes. This year, that did allow for softball an extra team, so we had a varsity and a university, which we didn't have last year. Synchronized swimming, we finished with 8. Last year, we finished with 4, so we really doubled the amount of students there. Lacrosse, we finished with 24. Track and field was down a little bit this year, 43 for the girls and 44 for the boys. Tennis, we finished with 20. The musical, with everybody included there, that's 25 student participants. Drumline, we had about 15, and for the bagpipes, we had 4. Just a quick update on our different activities that we had. For softball, we really had a rebuilding year. They did finish the season at 6 wins and 15 losses. Annika Olsen was named to the all-conference team, and Christine Erickson and Kira Greenfield were listed as our honorable mention athletes. In baseball, they finished with an 11 win and 9 loss record this year. I know we had some success this year and moving into sections, which we hadn't won a section game in a few years. So we actually did some good there by winning some multiple victories in the section. For all conference, Bobby Hosh and Blake Meeson were our all conference representatives, and for honorable mention, Aaron Severson and Jude Servio. In lacrosse, we continue to struggle with our program there. We're trying to move that forward and get the right pieces in place. They did finish with 2-10. Highlight there, we do have some good athletes on the team. Melissa Hosh was an example of one of them. She scored 51 goals, which was an all-time scoring record for us. So nice job for Melissa. In track and field, all conference, Keon Lewis, Adil Mubarak, and Fatuma Mane. And as far as our honorable mentions, we have a whole bunch of them here. We had 4 boys and 4 girls named to the team. Matt Bornaton and Kalada, Oates, Battle, Abram, Blum, Mitchell, and Mileska. Moving on to tennis, last year we won the conference championship and the section. We did lose some very key components to our tennis team. So again, we're on a rebuilding year. Coach Yell's done a nice job of recruiting. Now that he's our soccer coach, he's able to cross the athletes over to the tennis program. That's really helped us with our numbers there. So that's really been helpful. We didn't get any all-conference this year with our record, but we did have a couple on the honorable mention with Cherbob and Harilla. Synchronized swimming, they kept our state run alive this year. They did a nice job this year. Samantha Alexson qualified for state competition for the 2nd straight year. She really made a jump up this year from last year at state. She finished 5th in the short solo division. And I think I said that backwards, 5th in the short division figures and 4th in the short solo. So very proud. We went and watched. It was a terrific time. She did such a nice job out there, and just watching all the athletes at Synchro. If you haven't been there, it's quite amazing, all the work and all the things that they can do. So it was really fun for us all. The spring musical, Little Shop of Horrors, wow, what a nice job. Those kids worked so hard on that. They did such a great job. Brought in Director Farah Buffington. Again, she did a nice job for us. They did win 17 Spotlight Awards this year, so we're really honored to see all the things that came out of their hard work. Outstanding in a leading role for 2 years in a row was Jesse Mickelson. Honorable mention for performance in a leading role. We had a number here: Alexandra Jones, Justin Larkin, Penny Jackson, and Nathaniel Two Bears. Honorable mention for the overall performance went to their production. Honorable mention for the technical team and the technical crew. The awards continue. Outstanding award for audio visual board operators. A number of students who were instrumental here: Luis Campavardi, Alex Mueller, Edwin Pasantes, Emily Volley, Milani McCorvey, and Tenet Ramnamering, and Dan Corbel. So a lot of hard workers there for us. And there's some shout-outs that come out through the spotlight as well: and Ash Earth, Anaya Stevens-Moore, Cheyenne Houts, and Owen Johnson received those. And nominated for the Spotlight Technical Leadership was Luis Campavardi. Tonight, unfortunately, we're here and they are performing, so we weren't able to see their performances, but they are at the State Theater this evening, and Anaya Stevens-Moore was the featured dancer, and we did have our Spotlight Showcase participants of Jesse Mickelson, Alexandra Jones, and Justin Larkin, and Penny Jackson performing there. So I'm sure they're all doing terrific, and I can't wait to hear what everybody has to say tomorrow when we get to talk to them. So. And that is the update. Questions you guys have? All right, thank you.
It was a good spring. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Summer camps is next. Kristen will be joining Troy.
Chair Larkin, members of the school board, Superintendent Kelly, I'm pleased to be here with the collaboration between the activities department and community education for our summer camps. Our mission, of course, is embodied in the work that we're going to be presenting this evening. And all of the values are represented not only in the experience for the students, the work that the coaches put into it, but also the collaboration between many different departments throughout our district in order to facilitate these learning opportunities during the summer. We have 7 different offerings this summer, and it really is focused for grades 7th through 12th. From June 12th, yesterday, through August 4th, we have programming virtually every day. Actually, I think it's every day, including some Saturdays, except for the week of the 4th of July, in which there is no programming. And all of the programming is provided by our coaches. And so we have sliding fee scale for students, so we are really removing barriers for students to be able to participate, and it's a great opportunity for skill building and team building during the summer. And the last slide.
Oh, sorry.
There are no governance questions for you. We just really wanted to present this so that you are aware of the programming that's happening this summer. As is typical, community education provides the processing of the registrations, and this year we're taking a more robust partnership with our activities department, and happy for that opportunity of collaboration. Are there any questions?
I have one question. The camps that you have listed are all athletic-based camps. Are there any thoughts of doing any performing arts or any other types of programming during the summer in addition to the athletics?
I think as we move forward into next year, when we're looking at adding more of a theater component to the high school curriculum, I think that's something that we're going to look at adding as we go in to see if we have, directors and coaches who will be willing to sponsor those camps.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I was just going to say, Kristen, I know that we can't count our chickens before they hatch, but we did put some of these things into the 21st Century Learning Grant. And if, I don't know, Director Sandvik, do you want to comment, or Kristen, on some of the things we were thinking about in that grant if we receive it, just for curiosity's sake?
Sure. Yes, that grant will be announced later in the summer, and it would start then for the school year. So it would not affect programming for this summer. In terms of summer programming, it would start for next summer. And it does have components both of musical theater, dance, engineering programming, and more collaborations with Blooming Heights, and then also more recreation opportunities for our youth. And it was a co-written and submitted grant with the Columbia Heights Recreation Department. So they take a very active role in that and really provide a lot of not only supplement to our programming during the school day, but a lot of independent programming that they offer. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up will be the communications plan update for 17-18.
Chair Larkin, members of the school board, Superintendent Kelly, good evening. Tonight I'm going to be speaking on the Year 3 update, informational update of the 2014-2018 Comprehensive Communications Plan. We'll start out, as always, with the mission statement, and this plan is aligned with our district mission as well as our core values, and it aligns with each and every one of our core values. It also aligns with our strategic roadmap, Direction F, Tell Our Story, brand development, reputation management to increase partnership and enrollment. Little history, especially for our newer school board members. The Communications Department was reestablished in July 1st, 2013. As part of the reestablishment and building the program, we had a National School Public Relations Association communications audit performed from November 2013 to May 2014. The intent behind this was to provide us an objective third-party look at district communications. And from that audit, we built the comprehensive communications plan. We built it as a 4-year plan. We presented it to the school board June 10th, 2014, and activated it July 1st, 2014, And since that time, we've had 2 presentations, 2 updates to the school board. Within the plan, we accepted all the recommendations that the NSPRA provided us, and we built these into the 4-year increments. So as you'll see, the first year, 2014, 2015, we introduced, and I'm going to kind of go back, just jump one more. We introduced 4 of the recommendations. We had several that were focused because we were already doing those. And then the following year, we introduced a couple more. And this year, you'll see all 9 of our recommendations were in the focused category. And in terms of this year, year 3, we, of course, had 9 recommendations that we were working on, 35 strategies, and 141 tactics. And I'll start out by going through each one. Recommendation 1 is implementing a strategic communication program that reflects best practices in school public relations. We had 5 strategies, 23 tactics, and of these we achieved 11, 9 are ongoing, 3 are not developed. A clarification, when we say achieved, that means that we have accomplished that particular strategy or tactic. When we say ongoing, we actually have achieved it, but it's an ongoing process. Recommendation 2, expanding a culture of communication. We had 6 strategies, 17 tactics. We achieved 4. We have 4 that are ongoing, 6 that are in progress, meaning that we have started these, and they're not to the point yet. We're moving them up to the ongoing. And we had 1 that has not been yet developed. Recommendation 3, expanding outreach to parents and community. We have 11 strategy, 44 tactics. We've achieved 15, 16 are ongoing, 6 in progress, 2 not developed, and I believe a year or 2 ago we suspended 5, and the reason we did, we found that they were not practical for what we were trying to achieve. Recommendation 4, create a crisis communications plan based on best practice. We had 3 strategies, 14 tactics. We've achieved 3, 9 are ongoing, and 2 are in progress. Recommendation 5, continue to integrate social media into the communications program. 3 strategies, 14 tactics. It says achieved 1, but we actually have 11 ongoing and 2 in progress. Actually, this is probably one of our biggest programs right now. Between Facebook, which is significantly expanding, and in September, I believe it was, we introduced the superintendent's Instagram, and we're posting literally every day. You have a post ready to go. Social media is really taking off for the school district. It's not unusual. In fact, I was just looking earlier. One of our posts from the photos of the graduation, I think, is somewhere over 2,000, and that's from earlier today, I believe. Recommendation 6, expand the use of video as a communication tool. We had 2 strategies, 8 tactics. We've achieved 1, 2 are ongoing, 2 in progress, and 3 are not developed. Probably the accomplishment that I'd like to point out this year that you have all seen is the production of all the school videos as well as the community ed and early childhood. I'm not going to toot my horn. It's supposed to be a joke. Continue to refresh the district website. Sorry, Bill. We have 7 strategies, 14 tactics. We've achieved 10, 3 are ongoing, and 1 is in progress. And if you remember, last September 1st, we brought a new district website, a new platform on, which is not just the district, but all 5 of the schools. And that's been a huge project, and quite proud of it, but lots of work to continue. Recommendation 8, develop a marketing plan and incorporate effective marketing branding strategies into communication planning. 2 strategies, 8 tactics, 5 are ongoing, 2 in progress, and 1 that we have not yet developed. Recommendation 9, explore additional paths to engaging diverse populations. We have 2 strategies, 4 tactics, and all 4 of those are ongoing. And the results, I'm highlighting the year 3 because that's what we are. And we had, again, 141 tactics, and I can report to you tonight that we've achieved 126, That includes ongoing or in progress. Any questions, please?
Good job. I just have one quick question, sorry. Do you feel like the rest of the goals will be able to be accomplished in the next year?
That's a great question. I'd like to say that we're going to have 100%, but we can't because we suspended 5. And so of those that are left, there's a couple questions in terms of how we will address those budgetarily, but I think they are all feasible. They're all realistic.
Great work.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I know that we've in the past have done some communication surveys as far as the effectiveness of our communication as we're getting ready to close out this multi-year plan in 2018. Are we anticipating doing some additional survey in response to see if we've really, from our constituents and parents, if we've met those goals, and then to establish our plans going forward?
So when we go back to, I think it was the second recommendation, one of the goals that we have not achieved yet is another survey that's to take place in by year 4, which is a follow-up to the beginning. I actually sent the auditor a question about that earlier today and got a response. So the answer is yes, that's one of those that we have to do. At the same time, we've also been, where communication components are included in various surveys that the district's already doing externally and internally. We've already had 2 internal communication surveys this year, and from those, the feedback has been very positive. Certainly room for growth, but very positive. So the answer is yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bill? Thanks, Casey.
Thank you.
Next up, 2017-18 budget.
Chair Larkin, members of the school board, Superintendent Kelly. Once again, it's time to talk about budget for next year. Actually, we've talked about budget earlier this year, especially when we were talking about the staffing that went on all spring. Going through this process, we really are here to create worlds of opportunity for every learner when we talk about our programming for next year. Tonight, when we look at our core values, we're going to talk about community, integrity, excellence, and collaboration. I always want to just give you a snapshot of what's happening with our enrollment, because enrollment pretty much generates all the revenue that we have to work with here in the district. If you look at the 2016-17, the year we're just finishing up, you see we have a very, very small increase in our students this year. I want to point out too, you see that jump up in 13-14. This wasn't anything new happening right here in our buildings right here, but we became the host of the ALC site for 916. Those students that go there now are included in our student count. So that's why you're seeing that bump up there in a 14. Going forward, you see that the budget for next year for 17-18, the amounts are right exactly the same. We aren't anticipating any increase. And as you know, this past year we've talked about enrollment. We're actually, the elementary piece of our district is actually shrinking. We did see some growth in our secondary, which has kind of helped us out a little bit, mainly because they get weighted and we get a little more funds for our secondary students than we do our elementary. So we saw some nice growth back in 9-10 up through 13, but since then it's kind of really flattened off and it's been pretty flat. So we haven't been able to rely on any increased revenue in our budget. Then next, I just want to touch on, what happened, what we looking at this spring when we started talking about staffing and some of the budget issues that we had to take in consideration going into this budget. If we just take the staff we have now, we roll everything up into next year, not taking, just what does that cost? So you saw, if we went to change any programming, we would have saw an increase in our staffing, about $772,000, with benefits for the staff at $404,000. Overhead about $100,000 when we look at electricity, heating costs, different types of supplies and software pieces, things that we're buying, all have those little bit of increases. So we're seeing about $100,000 increase in those items. And then the piece that really hits us every year is tuition for special ed students. We're seeing about a $400,000 increase going to next year. And this is really the piece that's given us some trouble here the last few years. We're trying to get a handle on that special ed piece and really trying to get a handle on how that's changing from year to year. So you can see we had an increase in our expenditures, if we just upped everything, let's say, at almost $1.7 million. And then just a quick reminder, we talked about this when we first talked about the budget, really what's been happening to our fund balance the last few years. And you'll see that back in 2012, we had a fund balance just under $6 million, and now it has dropped down. We're right around that $3 million mark. So it has dropped down, and the biggest culprit has been getting a handle of that special education. There's a brand new formula they put in place about 2012, and really the state talked about how it was going to be a little different, and it really wasn't going to be much different. You can get about the same, but you see how it's really been shrinking us down a little bit. So what really did happen when we look at our revenues for next year? Well, I was pretty nervous when first we talked about those big increases if we left everything stagnant, and then at one point, the legislature was only talking about 1% increase, or 1.25%. So there's even some more money we have to get a hold of. So we did end up with 2%. You see it generated as $380,000, and they did not delink our compensatory dollars, so that's another $150,000 that we have in new revenue for next year. But that's really the only pieces that we have. So looking at about $530,000. We look at our expenditures after we went through our whole staffing piece. We're looking at increased expenditures and unassigned areas at $246,000, and compensatory a little more than we're bringing in. They're at $283,000. So that's balanced there, but it's very small amounts that we're getting a hold of compared to if we would have tried to leave our staffing the same. Now I put a handout at your table because it's just. I'll put the next slide up, but it gets very busy and hard to see. So if you get that sheet in front of you, I think you can follow along a little bit easier, but we'll hit the highlights of the budget for next year. First of all, when we look at our general fund unassigned area, now these are the dollars that are generated from the, here that the legislature talks about our formula allowance. Those are the dollars that are generated for us that we use for our regular education. So that goes into paying for our teachers in the elementary and the secondary schools, along with staff in the district office and so forth. But you see there that we have an improvement going into next year. We actually we should see a change of fund balance of increase about a little over $200,000. So that is really, we're trying to push that to get rid of that changing fund balance that it's falling, and we should be able to stop that, and we'll see really should see an increase in our fund balance coming back. We look at our gifted and talented. We don't get a lot in gifted and talented. We spend a lot more in gifted and talented, and those extra dollars are in that unassigned area. But you see that we only get $47,000 a year for gifted and talented, but we're spending several $100,000 in that area. Staff development, again, that's 2% of the revenue that we bring in under our formula allowance. You see that we're using that for next year, mainly for our peer reviewers and, of course, any staff development that we are doing. Grants, when we look at our grants, these are what Zena talked about earlier this evening. That's all our title grants. It's our integration grant, and, of course, it's our federal special education lumped in here, just to have an idea what those dollars add up to. So we're bringing in over $3 million in those areas. Compensatory, for next year, we're looking at 7.7, almost $7.8 million. So that is really something that helps us. Of course, we have some. This is generated from free and reduced lunch count. Of course, we have some, things that we really need to do and things we need to spend money on for those students. So anyway, that's what that is generating for us. Long-term maintenance. Remember, that's a new. Kind of a new stream. We had in the past, it was just called deferred maintenance. But the last couple of years now, we've saw a little increase, and that's one thing that has come through the Minnesota State Legislature. We've had a little increase in how we have some dollars now to maintain our buildings. And that's actually helping us quite a bit because that's up about $500,000 from what we used to have. So that's really helping us get our projects in order. Operating capital, stays about the same every year. That's a formula that's against how old our buildings are, along with the square footage in the buildings. So it actually slowly creeps up, but it's not very fast. But you see that we do get about $700,000 in capital funds on a yearly basis. When we look at our health and safety program, that's a health and safety program that's actually going away. We have a small negative levy adjustment, and that's why you're seeing that revenues of a negative $14,000. There'll be one more year of health and safety as a cleanup, and we'll see that this fall when we bring the new levy to you. And it should be exactly what that $148,000 that's in the hole, that'll be levied, and then it'll be done. It'll be gone. And all that money has been rolled over into that long-term facility maintenance piece. So when we look at our total restricted dollars, looking at $13 million. Again, those are just dollars that we have to spend the way the state wants us to spend them. But you see the total general fund at $46.5 million for next year. Any questions on the general fund? Okay. We'll just move in then into food service. You'll see that we do have a healthy fund balance when we look at food service, a little over $200,000. And the revenues and expenditures about balanced. It looks like we are going to see a small increase in our fund balance, about $25,000. We look at community education. These are the breakdowns. We have separate fund balance in these different areas. So it's, community education, ECFE and pre-kindergarten or the voluntary pre-kindergarten program. They have their own fund balance at the end of the year. So that's why you're seeing them split out into different lines. The negative amount at community ed, that's actually a levy adjustment. That's a one-time piece, so we won't see that in the next year. Okay, when we move on then to the building fund is where all our capital levy dollars, that new levy that we put in back in 14, all that money goes into Fund 6, and we pay for our projects through Fund 6. So you see there, we have a small balance there of $256,000, and what we're bringing in is what we're spending on the way out. Debt service, you see a negative. When you look at our change in fund balance, you're seeing a negative there of $45,000. That's planned. When you look at that fund balance of $532,000, we don't need that much money in that fund balance. But what the state of Minnesota allows us to do is we can levy 105% of what we need to make our payments on our bond payments. And then that way, if someone doesn't pay their taxes or doesn't pay their taxes on time, we have enough money to actually make the bond payment. And what happens over time, that builds up a little bit because we don't need the whole 5%. So there's an under levy there built into the levy. So that $45,000 is actually going back to our taxpayers. Flex account, if anybody has a flex account, we're at your place of employment. We just track that for our employees. We take that out of their check, and then they use it for their medical expenses. So there's a small balance that sits in there on a yearly basis, but about $220,000 flows in and out. Our dental, we are self-insured when it comes to our dental insurance. You see that we have $176,000 in that fund. That's actually been slowly increasing, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a year. So really, we are covering all our premium costs on a yearly basis, and we have not had an increase for our employees in this area since I've been here. So that's very good news. But you'll see there that we just plan to, the money comes in, the money goes out. Student activities, kind of the same way. We have about $100,000 fund balance in our student activity accounts. On a yearly basis, the students fundraise approximately $220,000 and spend that back out again. So that's kind of a revolving on a yearly basis. And then on when down at the bottom, Fund 45, you see the OPEB trust. This is the money that we've set aside for our retirees as they retire. This goes to pay for their severance in their health insurance area. So the dollars that we help them pay for the health insurance comes out of this trust. At this point, we are actually overfunded in this trust, and we are sitting very good. And at this point, we're pretty much balanced, so we're not draining that fund, and it's going very well. So overall, you see that we have about $54 million come in on an annual basis, and about $54 million goes back out. So is there any questions on any of that?
Anybody?
Okay, I'll bring this back 2 weeks I'll need the board to take action so that we can put this in place. Otherwise, I can't pay anybody in July. So we'll bring this back in 2 weeks.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Next up is the building bond referendum. So we got a host of people.
Chair Larkin, Superintendent Kelly, members of the board, I would say good evening, but I don't think it is that anymore. Thank you for sticking around for this one. So, of course, we create worlds of opportunity for every learner, and that's what we do at Columbia Heights Public Schools. And this is going to be one of the rare one of the rare presentations I'm a part of that's going to touch on every single core value. We're not going to itemize them. I'm going to see if you can find them throughout the presentation here. So this, the purpose of this meeting, of course, is the proposed 2017 facility bond referendum. And I'm going to pass that to Bill.
Yeah, as we've talked over here over the last few weeks, we've talked about a possible bond referendum. Looking at North Park Elementary space needs, upgrades and maintenance that's needed at that building. Looking at the high school and the PAC, or the Performing Arts Center, and the upgrades that are needed in that place. And then Columbia Heights band space, which we had talked about here last meeting 2 weeks ago. And then we have one more space we're going to bring your attention to this evening, and it's the Gymnasium Improved Performance Space. And I think you'll like what we found there. But we'll get to that here in a little bit. Just a quick reminder, we were presented the results of our community spring survey that was done back in April. And at this point, when we look at the questions we asked both on North Park and the high school, we had a 72.4 likely support with a margin error of 5.3%. So it looks like our community is very supportive of these projects that we've been talking about.
So on to North Park. Of course, one of the principal pieces of this project is a remodeling at North Park Elementary, and I know that you've seen similar presentations about North Park several times. So I'll be as brief as I can be. So there have been several upgrades at North Park. The building just turned 50 last year. So among the upgrades that North Park has seen over the years, it saw a roof replacement between 89 and 98. There, of course, was the major remodel in 98, thanks to the voters of Columbia Heights. And that included an addition to the building, which created what was then the media center, the replacement of the unit ventilators, and, of course, the extensive investment in technology and infrastructure that all of the schools saw at that time. Additionally, we had some remodeling of the learning studios, creating learning studios in grades 3, 4, and 5. And those happened in the summers of 2012, 13, and 14, respectively.
Well, we're bringing this information to you. There was some questions about what money was being used out of our capital facilities levy, and then what kind of pieces that we really need to do over at North Park. This is the actual slide that we used when we talked to the community about the capital projects levy back in 2014. So you can see over at North Park, we're still planning to spend about $2.7 million, and that includes the tuck pointing of that building, the windows, and replacing the doors, casework, of course, roofing, parking, and plumbing.
So on the technology side, with that 2014 levy, and this is district-wide, we talk about the pieces that we're putting in with those levy dollars. Upgrading district bandwidth, providing that proper network infrastructure, providing personal devices for our students within the personalized learning initiative. Of course, expanding personalized learning online and through online systems. Improving existing parent-student portal. We've started to work on some of that already with the new student information system. There's a long ways to go. Increase and upgrade building security. So really what we're talking about there are some of the technology pieces of that. So camera systems and card access systems. When we talk about that security, intrusion detection systems, motion systems. And then increasing I say they're external security cameras, so increasing our perimeter outside the buildings as well as inside the buildings, which is what the previous one's really talking about.
So North Park has several necessary upgrades that are beyond the funding that has already been allocated. Among those, our learning space needs include a library. Most of you have probably seen our book room. It's really not an ideal space, and it certainly is not a library. We need separate science and art classrooms that have larger space, which are commensurate with what is seen in the other elementary schools in the district. We also could really use an early learning incubator that's similar to Highland and Valley View. In addition, media arts is coming, and we're not prepared for it from a space standpoint yet. We don't have the appropriate space for media arts. Additionally, building security, and this is a big one. We are the only building in the district that does not have a secure single point of entry. As you know, we have our front door is the only one that's that folks are able to get in through during the day. We have a buzzer. And Karen, our secretary, is sitting about 50 feet away and hopefully can see you. And we have a camera system, and so that's kind of nice, but it is not ideal. It is not like every other building in the district, including the district center. Additionally, we would be moving the administrative offices to the front door to offer that extra bit of security, but also the customer service that people coming to North Park really deserve. Additionally, there's significant grounds maintenance that needs to be done. We could really use a new and updated play area. We have one slide, and we have a very, very small playground. It's nowhere near what our students require at Playworks. Additionally, I know Natty and Molly and John, you all have lived this with kids at North Park. All you need to do is be there during pickup or drop-off time sometime, and you will understand the issues that we have with parent pickup and with our buses. Currently, as you'll see later in a sketch, our bus pickup area is also our playground, and there'll be a much better visual later on in the presentation, like now, for instance. If you take a look here, I mean, you all know North Park well enough to know. I mean, this is our parking here for staff. Additionally, we've taken over about 20% of our play area for additional parking. Parking up here, these 6 spaces right here are what we have for visitors. So if visitors do have to park in the back, first of all, they have to come in a totally different entrance through the neighborhood between 2 houses, which is very difficult to find. And if they do find that, they have to park down here, and then they have to walk quite a ways and upstairs to get to our front door so that we can buzz them in. Additionally, this is the drawing I was speaking of with our bus drop-off. So buses come in and out of the same 1-lane drive. And it's the same drive that our staff uses to get to the parking lot. And because we don't really have a designated bus pickup area, they have to come and go around here, around the playground here, to be able to form a circle so that our kids can get onto the bus, which has also created significant issues in the mornings because it's our playground. And so for most of the past couple decades, our students have not been able to go out and play in the morning. With the help of the bus company recently, of Lorenz, with really getting their timing down, our kids have been able to get about 5 to 10 minutes in the mornings in the last couple of years. But really, it's just a design and a space issue, which has precluded our kids from being able to have that. Additionally, I mean, honestly, it's a safety issue, especially with the cars coming in and out at the same time as buses, which happens often. And you don't even want to know what happens when it snows. So I mentioned also earlier, and this is a depiction of moving our current admin space, which is offset from the front door, to the downstairs here, which would actually also be our front door, creating that single point of entry. And Brian, I don't know if you'd like to make a comment.
Well, I think every board member's been into the other buildings and been through the spaces on how they're set up. And that's the model that we feel is the securest model that we can implement right now. And again, that would just be moving the admin space out there to be able to create that secure entry like we have at the other buildings, and making sure that all of our buildings have the same level of access and security and customer service as we move forward.
And then also, there are other pieces to this project. The early learning incubator, of course, which would be slightly fewer square feet than the other two buildings, but really what we need at this point. It would actually give our pre-K students a proper space with bathrooms, and it would give all of our kindergarten classrooms proper spaces with bathrooms. Additionally, they would be together, so we could see more of that pre-K kindergarten collaboration, which does happen, but it's not ideal because the rooms simply are not equitable to one another. Also, we would have a combined music band space. They're not necessarily combined, they're just kind of taking up the same hallway. There actually would be a wall and a storage space separating the two, but it would be a significant improvement of our band space, which is currently in a classroom with a false wall next to a second grade classroom. So you can imagine what that's like on full band days when it's happening during reading. And additionally, we would keep the existing gym in this design, because what that would do is that would create a performance space, which our elementaries currently do not have. So that would actually put us in the forefront a bit. But a performance space is something that we really need, and that actually the community has agreed with us. So what that would do is our additional construction right there would be a cafeteria now, which makes an awful lot more sense, because I think it's a lot more important to have a cafeteria that has some natural light than a gymnasium that has some natural light. So overall, this is a change in the design that has been really positive. So if you moving upstairs, above the incubators would go our 3rd and 4th grade learning studios. So that you all, I've presented the research, I'm not going to get into it, but the footprint in 5th grade currently is the gold standard, and we would be able to replicate that above the early learning incubators. Additionally, something I'm really excited about is this would put our special ed programs into the heart of the building. And it's something that has never really sat well with a lot of us, that the space that we have for our special ed programming is not in the heart of the building. And that's really where it belongs. So it will allow our students, our Setting 3 students and our resource students to really have full access of the student body and the building as a whole. Additionally, it would provide science and art spaces, which are of the same size as the other two elementary school buildings right now. They are 900 square foot classrooms, and they're not sufficient. It would also give us media arts space, because like I said, media arts is coming. The overall site would see significant improvement. Our parking would suddenly become sufficient, which it isn't right now. Staff and visitors would share a parking lot, but it also, very importantly, would segregate busing from the cars. And so busing would, while the new entranceway would be down on Fillmore at the bottom of the hill, buses would come in one entrance here, and they would exit what is now the entrance/exit for all cars and buses. It would be much, much safer. It would also be much easier and more safe to get kids onto the buses. And then cars would come in a different entrance altogether. And I know, as Member Severson pointed out before, it's going to have to probably be a bigger circle than that. So this is just the rendering. It's not the final design, and significant increase in parking. So now it's the bill section, it's the numbers.
Yeah, I also have another handout for you tonight. Actually, you've got this in the past, but we just want to make sure one has one in front of them. Just, it's very hard to see up here, just there's so many numbers. There's just a couple of small things to point out. When you look at the new construction price on the sheet, you see it at about $3.5 million. And if you remember, we spent about $3 million at Highland, and we spent about $3.2 million at Valley View. So when we talk about that, that early learning incubator, those numbers are about the same amount as we would be putting into this building. And when you look at that heavy construction, that's taking that admin area and bringing it forward. And actually, these numbers have been pretty similar to what we've looked at for doing something for that admin area over the last few years. A lot of plans we've looked at, but that $2.5 million keeps showing up for what we need to do that. So just to kind of point those couple pieces out. The budget, again, was higher, but when we looked at not moving the gym and doing the cafeteria instead, that really shaved $2 million off this project. So we feel very good about that. And KA, when they put these numbers together, you know, they're very conservative. So it's very unlikely we'd ever go above these numbers when we go out to bid. So I think now we'll transition to conversations about the high school and the performance spaces. And I think the first thing we want to talk about is the Columbia Heights High School current estimated facility costs from 2014 capital projects levy referendum. I think Bill will talk about that one.
Yeah.
Again, this is a duplicate of the slide we actually used during the capital projects levy. And you see there that we're planning to spend a little over $4 million on the high school in maintenance items that we need to take care of. As you know, this year right now, we're taking care of a big piece of our plumbing with our cold water domestic piping being replaced this summer and next. We can see it includes parking and drives, which we've done some of. It will include tuck pointing, a replacement of the track, of course, casework, roofing, and sound in the PAC and the plumbing, which I just talked about. So then to talk about some of the needs beyond what we currently have built within that capital projects levy and existing funds, we're looking at learning space needs in 3 areas. We talked about it at the beginning, the Performing Arts Center upgrades, the new band space, and a gymnasium improved performance space. So I'm going to talk about the lighting first. This kind of gives you an idea. So this is actual rendering of the bottom picture is a rendering of our existing PAC Performing Arts Center. So you see in the panels in the top in the yellow gold-ish color, you see the recessed lights. So those lights there are the house lights. And then the lights hanging from the bars that are hanging down, those are the stage lights. So what we're doing is looking at replacing the stage lights on all sides in the front and on the stage with new LED lighting. And we do have a few, and you've maybe seen it if you've seen the performances. There's a couple lights that spin around, and we can move from the sound or the lighting board in the back. And so there's a couple lights that we purchased new, but it would be basically revamping all of the lighting systems so that we have a new lighting system. And then as far as the house lights go, there's the control system for those lights. They're getting a little bit finicky. And so for example, sometimes you turn the lights on, you gotta turn the dim all the way down and then turn it all the way back up for the lights actually to come on after you turn it on. So there's some things like that. The system has aged and that control system needs to be revamped. So we'll have new controls for that. And through this lighting system, and you'll see that with the other systems that we're implementing, and we'll be moving everything from the seating area, which you've seen when you've been there, the sound and the lighting and everything that's down there in the back, taking up seats, back up to the booth. So we'll move that new soundboard, our lighting board back up to the booth. So the top image is just some image of some of the LED lighting. And some of the nice things about the LED lighting is the colors. So, just by having the LED lights, we can change colors pretty easily versus the old way of changing colors. So some additional, I talked about the sound system. We don't have an exact rendering of the space with the new sound system yet. But you can see on this image there, the speakers that are kind of hanging up in the air there, that would be a proper installation of a sound system for a performance venue versus where our speakers are right now. So since over the years that it's been remodeled, the speakers were no longer functioning. We dropped the speakers down and they're setting up next to the stage. It's not a proper installation. We've made it work. We've brought in new speakers and really enhanced the best that we can, but really flying those speakers back up and getting them off the ground is the best way to do it. So this would do that. And so it would be a permanent speaker system versus the one that we move in and move out. And again, I talked about it before, moving that soundboard up into the booth where it belongs. Presentation system, we know we don't have one in there. We bring in a projector on a cart.
So it would be actually implementing a proper presentation system for the space, and making sure that the control system is wired for ease of use. So Principal Robleski can just walk into the room, turn the sound system on, and plug in his computer and present. It'd just be that simple, versus right now, the people that have to be involved for him to be able to provide something in that room, whether it be whatever the performance might be or whether the activity might be in there. And again, I talked about the sound and lighting booth. Right now, it's just not properly designed. It's not properly spaced. The windows are too small, so it would be expanding those windows in the space, revamping the storage in that space to be able to support the equipment that's needed up there. So we have the space. We just need to remodel it.
Also included in the upgrades at the PAC, see a whole new set of curtains. You can see like an example of what that would look like. We look at all new carpeting in that space. We also look at all new paint throughout, and of course we'll have all new seating. The PAC then will hold 418 people or community members to come to whatever performance that we're having. When we look at the stage, it'll get a new floor. You see it right now, if you go in there, it's pretty beat up. The steps on the side will be replaced. They'll fill the whole space. If anybody walked up those steps, you see there's a big gap, either on the right or the left-hand side. The front of the stage would be remodeled with all new wood. It would look refreshed and look very nice. Again, I talked about the curtains. All the dressing rooms that we have dressing rooms there. They will be upgraded, cleaned out, and be able to use. And of course, we need to put in a new ADA compliant ramp. We've talked about that in the past. Right now, the ramp is just, wow, pretty steep. So it doesn't really work for us. Here, if you take a look, we've showed you where that ramp goes. Actually, you still have that. Right here is the opening now, and just goes a steep ramp up into the space. We would actually take this side, I mean, there's some storage here now, but we would take this side, open up new doors here into the hallway, and it would be all ADA compliant, and we can bring stuff up into there. And then inside here, these steps on either side will be the full space there. It won't have any of those gaps. So it would work much nicer. When we look at costs then for the PAC, you can see construction costs there are $765,000. The lighting system that Director Hennekens has talked about at $165,000, new sound at $150,000, and then a presentation system at $100,000. Fees, of course, that's building fees and architectural fees and so forth, $190,000, and then a contingency to make sure we don't have any issues there. So at $1.5 million to go ahead and upgrade that PAC to a very nice use space.
Just to point out that as you saw all the upgrades that are being done to the PAC, I think it's just updating. As you heard, like the light switches, it's like hit twice, flip. It's time to have some of these things upgraded to meet even code. So I think these are necessities. They're really not wants, they're just the necessities to get us up to date in the PAC. So.
And in addition, Principal Robleski, could you talk about some of the varied things that the school uses the PAC for beyond like a musical performance? Because I know you do other things in there.
Besides a musical, we have the fall plays. We have class meetings that are done once a week during the school year. We have the one-act plays. We have our convocation at the beginning of the year, which you all participate in. We have parent meetings to start the school year. We also have guest speakers that come in throughout the school year. We use University of Minnesota speakers to come in and talk to parents about college and career readiness. So the PAC is a very heavily used venue for the district, as well as hosting the band choir and theater for the middle school. I know that we have the summer festival put on by Pastor Dan and
Columbia Heights, the Columbia Heights Fine Arts.
Correct Foundation.
Mhm.
And then I think there's a community band concert as well. So as you look at this venue that we have in our districts, it's really not just a high school venue, it's a community venue that's used by our community. And I think it's one space that really does need to be updated at the high school.
Thank you. So we'll transition to talk about the band space and the band needs. So the high school band classroom will not meet the future needs of the expanding band program. We'll kind of talk a little bit more about that. So the number of students in the band has been growing over the past 10 years. The district's received several grants through VH1, Save the Music Foundation, and that really helped with our 5th grade program. The district also invested in staffing and materials to support that. And the district received smaller grants through the City of Columbia Heights Activity Fund to support band students. And these grants and investments have really strengthened the program. And we're seeing that now at our middle school, and now into our high school, with the numbers really growing in our band program. And really the space isn't meeting those needs. So also with this space, and you will see a rendering in a little bit about the size of the existing space versus what we're talking about. And there are significantly lower ceilings in that space, so the acoustics, and there are potential safety hazards with the risers and the low ceilings that are in the space. And then we really are maybe deficient in our individual practice spaces in that room. So looking at having better individual practice space. So after a walkthrough of the building by staff and consulting engineers, there really wasn't another space within the building that provided all of those things that we need, the proper square footage, the proper ceiling height, to be able to provide the acoustics and put the risers in, have the safe space, have the practice spaces. So we just didn't have that space. So then we looked at a separate new band space, having separate updated practice spaces, instrument repair cleaning room, which is incredibly important with the sink, sufficient instrument storage, new furnishings, of course, additional natural light, being able to have more windows into the space, and overall improved acoustics for practicing in. So then this would be a rendering of what that space would look like. So on the far wall, you can see the doors that go into the practice, individual practice spaces. You see the risers, you see the storage in the back. The risers on the sides will have steps going up, so it can be accessed from the front and from the sides. So really, you can see high ceilings, lots of windows on the back, and they'll be on the other side too. That really gives the overall space that the band program at the high school really needs. And this is the rendering I was talking about, the current versus the new space. So you can see the volume difference, you can see the ceiling height difference. It's really definitely, you can see the risers built within the space here. These are the risers. So the risers actually are bigger than the existing space. And again, that's really to meet the growing program and meet the amount of students that we have that are within the band program. And then this one is just kind of showing where the space is. It's kind of hard to see the color, but over by the tennis courts here, this is the new space. So it'd be added on to the end of the building out there.
When we looked at costs, again, we had Kraus Anderson put some estimates together for us. You see, for this new space, right now, we're looking at an estimated building construction cost of $2 million with a contingency built in of $245. Fees at $200, and of course, furnishings and equipment for that new room at $75, bringing that to about $2.5 million.
So just a couple things about the space that we're already in. To even have a small band in that room is a safety hazard with the instruments going back and forth. But the impact of the band playing during the day impacts the rooms above it, which are 2 math classrooms. So if you are in those math classrooms and the band is performing, it is quite a bit of a distraction for the students in 2 classrooms. So, and the low ceilings it's just not conducive and is not really a band room of what we have right now.
Then finally, we'll talk about the gymnasium improved performance space, and this is something that is additional, and it's a found space within that already exists, that we just want to maximize its potential for the performance-based needs that we have. And Principal Robleski talked about all of the things that are happening in our Performing Arts Center right now as we move forward, and the needs that we have for performance venues. So we talked about that it's the only performance space that we have in the district, so the middle school uses it, the high school uses it. We talked about that it's frequently accessed by the community and some of the groups of the community that use our Performing Arts Center right now. Columbia Heights High School accesses the space for band, choir, theater, musical theater programs. We talked about those. We talked about the academy and how they access the space. So really, as a district, performing arts programs are expanding, and added with the community use, additional space is required. And, so as we look at that, we have a gym, an existing gym with an existing stage on the gym, which is a very sizable stage in reality. And the depth of it is actually a little bit bigger than our Performing Arts Center. So it's definitely ample space. And
I was just going to say, while we're on this slide, that routinely we say the middle school can have its 1 play in the fall, and the high school can have its 1 play in the spring when we're talking about musicals. We try to slide in the 1 act in between the band and choir concerts and all of the things that are going on. And when you look at other schools around us, they just don't do 1 play. On an average for a theater department, they may do 6 different kinds of plays in a year. Some might be small, some might be individual solo performances, et cetera. We don't have that option for anything 612 to really expand to that space. And I think we've gotten so used to it. With the growing theater program, we still limit ourselves to the amount of times that performers can perform. And really, when you're in a performance art, it's really about the performance. It's an application of the things that you're learning in your class, just like you would in a science class. And we've just grown used to it. But if you look at the other schools around us, they are using their venues much more, and their students are getting much more of a chance to perform than we do in this district. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to...
Oh, thank you. And so what we have next is an image of, Superintendent Kelly mentioned other schools using their spaces. This is an example of another school district that is using their gym stage. So they have a thrust stage that actually lowers and raises. So you can see the black outline of the stage right there. So this whole stage picks up and covers the opening up. So acts as a door. So there's a mechanism that just picks that stage up. So it doesn't interfere with the gym. They can still utilize the gym as a gym, lower the basketball hoops, play games. But again, it gives that stage coming out to create a performance venue. You can see the you can see the shells on the side here, the piano. So again, giving you ample space on the side for choir, for anything additional that needs those shells. And then of course the big stage, the performance space. So that's what we would be looking at adding, and then the next image would be a rendering of what it would look in our gym. So again, we'd have that thrust stage that would be able to lower and raise, so it would just pick up and cover that opening up, which existing is just a bifold door that covers that really never gets opened up. So it's really covering, a wonderful stage. So this would create a stage, thrust stage out, and again, give us a performance space, another performance space to be able to have more performances as our programs grow, which is definitely as described, a strong need moving forward as we add curriculum, when we add theater pieces moving forward. So, all we'd have to do is put the chairs down in front, and we have the seating for the performances. So, and I think next.
Can I just say one more thing before we get into the total cost, because it's kind of a pleasant surprise when you get to that total cost. Can we go back one?
Yep.
I kind of look at that space as being like a Murphy bed approach, if you've ever lived in an efficiency apartment where the bed just goes up into the wall and then comes back down. It's just that easy. But behind it, we actually have a stage area that is larger than the PAC, that has more fly space up above. And that has had dressing rooms off on stage right and stage left. And there's wing space. So it's possible you could run one play in one and one play in the other simultaneously. You could also do band performances. I think some of the things in the offing in the years as the music program grows and the boosters we could do bandoramas. When we have graduation outside, it is always, what are we going to do if it rains kind of a situation, and we have ramps that extend hither, thither, and lawn in a small stage for people to graduate on. We could do that. We could also have forums in there, and many times there are community events where people are looking to do guest speakers. This would be the perfect venue for that, as well as sometimes people like to use either the PAC or a gym space for precinct caucuses and things that are community events, and we can only handle one at a time, and then it's who makes that choice. So, so when we're looking at that, we don't have to limit our community either. And so I just wanted to point out some of those things, that it's really found space that existed probably when that building was built and really was the theater and the gymnasium combined. And then when the new addition came on, they added a theater and separated it out. And since I've been here since 1998, I've never seen that blue fold open. I think some people don't even know there's a room back there. And when I've talked to other alums going through the years, they haven't seen performances on that stage at all. And it's just beautiful space. I'm done.
Again, I guess we were pleased to get the first estimate on this at $150,000. So we really felt this would fit into this, combine project with not really breaking the bank. So very pleased with that number that we got at $150,000. So when we look at all four projects that we just talked about, go through them. First of all, we got North Park Elementary School, that cost of $11.5 million. The Performing Arts Center in the high school at $1.5 million, and then a new band space at $2.5 million, and then an additional performance space using the gym stage that's already there, and just putting that thrust stage in at $150,000. So it gives us a total cost there of $15.8 million for the whole project. Now, again, we got strong support from the survey that we had done this spring from the surveys, so that these would include then the North Park Elementary space needs, upgrades and maintenance, high school Performing Arts Center upgrades, the new school, the high school new band space, and then the high school gymnasium improved performance space. And then, if you remember, we talked about what is this going to cost? What will this cost our community? We talked about that $150,000 now is about the average value of a home, of how people get taxed through the county. The survey really gave us a threshold of around $60 per year as a new tax that would be supportive. And when we looked at this project going to $16 million with a 15-year term, that the cost on that average house is at $46, or about, just under $4 on a month. So it's about $1 a week is what, less than $1 a week. So, definitely the cost of these projects fit within what the survey was telling us of where that threshold is that the community would support those new tax dollars at. So as we go forward, governance questions, of course, first is if, are we going to put a question on the ballot, and what? It would be those four 4 different projects. The North Park Elementary space needs, upgrades and maintenance, high school PAC Performing Arts Center upgrades, high school new band space, and high school gymnasium improved performance space. Of course, when would we do that? Looking at the November 7th election date for right away this fall. So that's the questions that go, we go back to you as the board at how you want to go forward.
So it was a long presentation. Thanks for hanging with us. Do you have any questions?
I think this is a point we probably need to have some discussion about the what, the if, what, and when, and related to the questions if they're there, but comments at this point.
I have a question and then a couple of
Yep.
comments. I think one question that I had is when you had shown the slide that showed the 2014 capital projects levy for the high school, that included sound for the Performing Arts Center. And then this project also includes sound for the Performing Arts Center. So just again, making sure that there's not duplication or if it's different.
It is different. We looked at sound in the capital projects, and just we were looking at just replacing some of the equipment. So it would be a low level. This really is full system overhaul. And just because we couldn't afford a full system overhaul, it just wasn't in the books. So it was a long-term look at basically maintenance of what we had. That's what we were looking at there. This is not a long-term maintenance of what we have. This is really putting in a new system that supports the needs of the space.
And then with the gymnasium improved performance space, the $150,000, is that really just for the stage component or is there a lighting and sound component for that as well?
The cost that we gave you is just to put the thrust stage in. Yes, eventually we're going to want to put some, lighting and sound and so forth in there, because that space probably needs some replacement too. But we did not add that to the project at this time.
We have had conversations about that. I don't want you to think that, okay, we don't have a plan for that. There is an existing sound system. There are some existing lighting components in there already. We've already had conversations about how we're going to do that moving forward. This is it's a different level of performance space that we're talking about. So when Superintendent Kelly talked about the band performances and some of the other things that we have there, a little bit different than a full musical.
Right.
So we're not talking, so there's just some separation of what the spaces are going to be able to do. So I have full faith in what we have with existing capital dollars to be able to, again, long-term 10-year facilities type of thing. We already have plans to revamp the sound system that's already existing in there with that, because it doesn't need a major, necessarily a major overhaul. It's not in the same shape. It doesn't need to be able to perform to the level of the Performing Arts Center when you talk about, again, those high-level musicals that we're doing in there. So I feel pretty confident in that.
See a comment as well?
I just had a couple of comments and just maybe overall of the facilities and looking at the North Park space. I think what's important to note, maybe clarifying for me, just reaffirming that what we're looking at is not cosmetic changes to North Park. I mean, we're really looking at, I've kind of on my notes broke it down into 3 areas of safety, health, and security. Looking at the safety of our students during drop-off and pickup and busing, and while they're playing, that's a current safety need. The security need of keeping our students safe while they're in school, in terms of the controlled access component, and then the health of the space as well, and making sure that the spaces are useful in their intentions. So, not really looking at a cosmetic change, but more as a safety, security, and health needs. And then as you move to the high school space as well, I want to be cautious there too. Again, we're not talking about cosmetic space, although the new Performing Arts Center looks really nice. What I think we are challenged with is that we have, which is a very good thing, we have growing programs. So between the theater program, the band program, and even the choir program, as these spaces continue to grow, we need to have appropriate spaces for them. And that's true for North Park space too, is having intentional educational spaces that work for our students during their educational needs. So really stepping beyond what looks nice and what looks pretty, but how do we serve our students in the capacity that we have to serve them so that they can continue to grow and learn, and how do we make sure that our facilities grow with them?
Anyone else? No, I would concur with what Lorian is saying. I think it's important for the viewing audience to understand this isn't, a pretty up a building and make it look nice. It is nothing. It'll look nice when it's done, right, Bill? Yes? Okay. But that's not the purpose of it. It is truly security. It's the safety and it's the health of the spaces and the usability of these spaces, whether it be growing programs here or being able to use the learning studios as designed, media centers, libraries, things like that. It's having a healthy space for our students to be able to continue to grow and develop. So as nice as it'll look, the intention, as I understand it, or as I guess I'm interpreting it, is, as Lorian said, is those three key components there. Laura?
Just a real quick comment. I would love to not go into every single year with the facilities and go, well, what about North Park? Because I mean, we've been working on this for a lot of years, and I know, we had the sky high, all the bells and whistles kind of proposal, and now it's down to earth and just functional spaces that look like they're going to be very adequate for years to come. So next year, maybe I won't say, what about North Park? So, except for, how's it going over there? So. Long night tonight. Thanks for
If we're trying to get a
everybody
barometer
staying
of how, sorry.
Go ahead.
If we're trying to get a barometer, I'm comfortable with this too. I think that it seems like good stewardship of what the community's given us and taking care of it in a way that honors the kids and their educational needs as we move forward. So.
And again, as much for the viewing audience, because I think we all understand it, but the levies that we went out for 2 years ago are being used appropriately as designed with transparency. So I'm comfortable with saying this is something that we need to take a look at it and work forward with. But I want people to understand it isn't, we just want more money to do some of the different things. These are very specific to, I guess I'm going to steal her thunder again and go back to the security, the safety, and the health of the learning spaces is where this is really headed. So it's completely separate and appropriate, I feel, and supported by our surveys too. So.
And I'd say I'm sorry, Molly. I appreciate too the work that you guys have done to put into this. And I know we've asked a lot of questions and have had a lot of needs and a lot of clarifications. And so I appreciate you doing the work as well as going back to the drawing board to make sure that we are being fiscally responsible and as fiscally responsible as possible, specifically with the redesign of the North Park space, to really being able to have a win-win situation of what is it that we need to provide those healthy, safe, secure spaces while we're also paying attention to the tax dollars as well.
I just think in terms of the barometer, I'm completely for putting a question on the ballot. What I appreciate about this is that it touches all the populations from the earliest learners all the way up to community ed and the community in general, and also just as many different areas of learning and the spaces. It's not just focused on performing arts it touches on the library, the media arts, just all the different components. I think it was well done, and thank you for your time, because like Lorian said, I know you guys have done a lot in terms of going back to the drawing board. Thanks.
Would this be a comeback on the 27th as well?
An action item, correct, yes.
Yes. Okay, so we're really getting up to the multiple letters on our action items next time. So
I'm counting 6 tonight.
I got 8. There's 8 actually.
Oh, wow. Budget. I missed budget.
I guess that at this point that what I would like to see, and certainly can continue the discussion, but something coming back on the 27th, to put a question on the ballot with the 4 items that are up there for the November 7th election, and then we'll have an opportunity to discuss again at that point and make that decision. If anybody has any questions or anything between now and then,
I have one comment. Is that okay, Laura?
Please.
I think that it would be important to look at wording the high school gymnasium improved performance space more accurately. because my brain went to athletics, and so I'm just concerned that we really clarify what that is
Okay.
before we put it on the ballot.
Laura, did you have something?
Gymnasium stage. I'm putting it out there. 'cause
High school
it's
gymnasium stage.
Nobody knows it exists.
Improvement or something like that.
Performing arts space located in the high school gymnasium.
With an
Stage
asterisk
added
to
to the
smaller
gym?
print at the bottom. I don't know. Yeah.
You know,
Theater formerly known as a
Yes,
gym.
Something.
But if you come up with something, text me.
Okay, sure. Put my thinking
Let's not
cap
make that a governance issue.
Upstyle.
Right.
That's what it's called.
Like I said, my concern was that it just went to, like, what are we going to do with the gym better?
Oh, upstairs, but probably don't want to reclaim space.
Anybody else have any comments or discussion regarding the governance question that'll be
Oh, no,
coming
I'm
forward
good
on the
with
27th?
That's what.
Okay, thank you very
Excellent.
much.
Thank
for
you very
the
much.
effort.
Thanks.
Thank you. I didn't mean to start.
Into a pumpkin.
I'm beyond that now.
Next up, external user access recertification system official with authority. This one is Bill.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chair Larkin, members of the school board, Superintendent Kelly. Each year now, starting 2 years ago, MDE has a new external user access system, and we have to give authorization to the superintendent on a yearly basis that the superintendent is the one who controls what employee goes into MDE and uses different systems. There's quite a few different systems where we put information in as it comes to our information that goes into our levies, all kinds of different systems. For an example, like we talked earlier in the budget, we talked about the grant pieces. Well, there's a system that we have to put all that information into, and someone has to have access. So what we'll bring back to you in 2 weeks is just asking the board to give authorization to the superintendent to give the authority to different staff members to do that work in those systems.
This is routine, an annual.
Yeah, this will be an annual ask, as it started 2 years ago. This will be the third time we do it.
Any questions? Thanks, Bill.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, on to action items. Troy, Minnesota State High School League membership. This will actually be a resolution, so we'll have Troy introduce it, then move forward from there.
Chair Larkin, members of the board, Superintendent Kelly. In your board packets, there is a resolution in there from the Minnesota State High School League. And at this time, I would ask the board to consider a request to formally approve our annual membership with the Minnesota State High School League.
Okay, we'll start with the motion and a second to move it forward.
So moved.
Second.
Natty? I'll read it and then we can open it for discussion. A resolution for the 2017-2018 membership in the Minnesota State High School League. Resolved that the Governing Board of School District Number 13, County of Anoka, State of Minnesota delegates the control, supervision, and regulation of interscholastic athletic and fine arts events referred to in Minnesota Statute Section 12C.01 to the Minnesota State High School League, and so hereby certifies that to the State Commissioner of Education as provided for by Minnesota statutes. Be it further resolved that Columbia Heights High School is authorized by this, the governing board of said school district, to renew its membership in the Minnesota State High School League and participate in the approved interschool activities sponsored by said league and its various subdivisions. Be it further resolved that this governing board hereby adopts the Constitution, bylaws, rules, and regulations of said league and all amendments thereto as the same as are published in the latest edition of the league's official handbook on file at the office of the school district or as appears on the league's website as the minimum standards governing participation in said league-sponsored activities, and that the administration and responsibility for determining student eligibility and for supervision of such activities are assigned to the official representative identified by the governing board. Discussion. Is there a fee associated with this membership?
There is, based on the amount of different activities that we participate in, so how many sports and how many of the other activities.
Okay, and that just as it goes, okay. Anybody else? All right. This will be a roll call.
Larkin.
Aye.
Palmer. Aye. Mueller. Aye. Severson. Aye. Lewis.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thanks, Troy.
Thank you.
Next up, Type 2 Transportation Contract.
Chair Larkin, members of the school board, and Superintendent Kelly. I come back before you this evening asking that you authorize 3 different contracts that we'll give to our Type 3 providers. We've had some difficulty over the last few years of not having enough vehicles to move our homeless students. We'll call up the vendor we use and they go, sorry, we don't have any vehicles, and sometimes it'll take us up to a week, even longer, to find a vehicle, and these students need to be coming to school as they move to different places. So tonight, I would like to have you authorize a contract for 3 different vendors. First one is United Transportation Services. Second, Safe Tree Transportation, and R&D Transportation. All 3 of these have given us, they've agreed with the same amount of route, what it's going to cost us. So that's all common. And all 3 of these have, a lot of experience hauling homeless students. These aren't just brand-new companies. And I feel very comfortable with them. Maybe it sounds a little funny to ask for 3, but we want to make sure we have enough service for our students. So I do ask that we would authorize contracts to all 3 of them.
I can start with the motion.
So moved.
Laura,
Second.
Lori, discussion, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries.
Yep, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Board topics. Do you have any board topics? Lori, you want to talk about the concert tomorrow night?
Oh, yes, thank you. The Silver Lake Symphonic Winds has a concert tomorrow at Silverwood Park at 7 p.m., and that's our community band. So we're hoping for outdoor concerts tomorrow, 7 p.m.
Rumor has it there will be a guest performer during one of the songs, and it's not me. It's not me. So, anyway.
You're gonna leave us hanging like that?
Huh?
You're gonna leave us hanging on just
Go to the concert.
mystery guest?
Go to the concert.
right.
It'd be worth your time. Any other board topics? Hearing none, we'll adjourn the meeting at 10:06.